Oh, I messed that up. There we go. Now we're good. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Davy Dak Fight Round 10. It's crazy that we're already at our 10th Davy Dak Fight, which is awesome. And this week, as a lot of you probably already know, I am welcomed by an awesome panel of guests from the Last Arc channel. For those who aren't familiar, the Last Arc is an awesome channel that's basically a collection of great One Piece theorists. They help bring content, from various sources, from other people who don't maybe normally do YouTube, or some who do. It's just an awesome spot to get all sorts of One Piece theories. They'll tell you more about it. But we do have, quite a big panel today. So without further ado, I'm just going to dive right into some of these introductions. So Adam Jinrakai, let's start with you. We'll just go left to right. You want to do a little intro?
Sure. My name is Adam Jinrakai. I'm a YouTuber and a manga artist, American manga artist or whatever. And like everyone here, I love One Piece, and I'm struggling on the grand line of YouTube.
It's a tough place. It's just as tough as the real Grand Line.
It's maybe even deadlier.
And I won't dox you, Adam, but I will say that Adam and I have some similar origins in life. I'll say that. Similar geographic.
Yes, we do. Ohio brothers.
Yes,
we'll
sir.
leave it at that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Glad to have you here, man. I'm really excited. And also, I don't think you said it, but also shout out to the Shonen Beat, right? And Adam makes a lot of good. I know you said American manga artist. He also does some amazing thumbnail work and stuff. Like the Last Arc does a lot of his art. If you've been to the Cross Guild Connections, he's done some of that. So Adam's awesome for sure.
Thank you.
And then Elids. So everyone probably remembers Elids because he was on here just a couple weeks ago, but he is also part of the Last Arc. So we definitely wanted to bring him back. So Elids, how's it going?
Going well. It's a pleasure to be here. I took a little break, but I'm always thinking of One Piece in my head, and I do have something coming out very soon involving Kid potentially being a sun god, which sounds very hacky on the surface, but as always, I always come with a surprising amount of evidence for these type of things. And another shout out to the Shonen Beat. You can read it for free on Patreon. So, if you find the time, definitely go do that.
Definitely go check that out for sure. And Adam, if you have a link or something, feel free to drop that in the chat. That would also be totally cool. If you have one.
Thank you.
Let's go Den Den next. Everyone probably remembers Den Den as well, because he was also on the stream with Elids.
Hey. Thank you for having us. Yeah, it's cool to be back, and it's real nice to have like TLA with Dak at the same time, because we've all been pretty close for a while. So yeah, thanks again for having us. And I basically make sort of YouTube theories about like the world lore and stuff like that. Yeah, thank you again.
Absolutely.
Peace, everyone in the chat.
Yeah, and kind of like you said, I'm happy to have TLA here too, because I'm like friends with a lot of you like separately, and then you guys started the TLA, so it was kind of a natural thing, I think, to bring you guys on. So happy you're back for round 2.
Perfect.
Kube, you're next.
What up, guys? So I'm Kube, the lurking legend of the crew. Usually I'm furious behind the scene, took some time to come out of my shell. Gotta thank Den for that. And I'm also the French expert, being from a French country, so One Piece is very interesting for me. So, that's a bit more expertise.
I like it's a unique perspective, for sure.
Yep.
Straw Hat Lucas, you're next.
Yes, sir. Hello out there. I am Straw Hat Lucas. I am the baby content creator on The Last Arc, as I always joke. I'm a TikTok creator. I mostly cover devil fruits, but I'm branching out into theories and other things. I'm very, very happy to be here. Very excited. Can't wait to get this going.
Excited to have you here. I know you said you're the baby creator of the group, but for me that's maybe the most exciting part. Whenever you're starting out and learning the tricks of the trade and getting your footing on YouTube and all that. That to me, that's just the potential is limitless. So excited to have you here. And last but certainly not least, 3-Day. If anyone is familiar with 3-Day from being a mod in the Discord and in the chat, 3-Day is now on stream. So 3-Day, how's it going?
It's going good.
excited to
I
have.
do it, and I do Reddit theories mainly.
Yep, and also some theories on the last arc, which we're definitely going to be talking about at some point today. And if you guys watch my videos, you've probably heard me shout out 3-Day like 3 or 4 times now. So we're gonna have a lot to talk about. A lot of good topics.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. You have. For those who don't know, because I think a lot of people know, I joined Parvision's Discord, and that kind of led me to starting the YouTube. You know, like I joked that I was like conceived on Randy Troy's channel, and then birthed on Parvision's. And part of that was literally whenever I joined Parvision's Discord, before I made any videos, I joined at like 3 a.m. and I was like, all right, guys, I got some theories. And 3 days, like, what theories you got? And that like led to the whole channel and everything. So it's really fun to have 3-Day and everyone else here today, for sure. So
Thanks a lot, Doc. It's been a fun ride.
Oh yeah, no problem. And I'm excited to see where TLA goes also, because I mean, I talk to you guys a lot, so I know there's going to be there's already some good theories, but there's going to be even more coming. So all right, so I want to get right into it, because we obviously have a big panel here today, and I want to let everyone have some time to cook. So real quick, I'll start off by saying thank you, Lord Vegeta, for becoming a member. He said, shout out the last arc, dope people and dope content. Could not agree more. And then Lord Vegeta also gifted 10 memberships. I mean, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. If you have any, Lord Vegeta, I'll try to keep an eye on the chat. There was like no chat attached to it. If you want me to shout something out for you, man, please, I'd be happy to. Thank you so much for the memberships. And I guess I'll also say this now, just piggybacking off that. I released a members only video last week about 1081. I'm hoping to do a members only video on 1082 tonight, where I talked to a couple other creators and stuff. So all the new members, be on the lookout for that. There will definitely be a video in the next couple days, and just maybe not tonight, but soon. So anyways, without further ado, let's get into it. Let's talk some One Piece. We got a lot to talk about. Chapter 1082 was hype. One of my favorite chapters in a little while. Everyone, maybe I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people like it, when Buggy's there succeeding. So, but even outside of Buggy, we have a lot going on in the story. I mean, we could talk all day about the stuff going on in the final saga. But at least for now, I would just like to get started with just basically, final saga Oda's cooking, and I just want to get some general thoughts on, it could be 1082 or just where we're going in general, or maybe what you're most excited for. Let's just get a little open discussion started on what's going on. So let's start with Straw Hat Lucas. What are your thoughts just on 1082, or just what's been happening lately in the final saga?
When it comes to 1082, I really think, and I said this on my TikTok video on it, is that this was probably one of the best written speeches I've ever read in One Piece. The one with Buggy and his flashback with Shanks. It struck me in an emotional place. I want to see the dynamic between Buggy and Shanks way more, and I think that's one of the things I'm most excited to see in the final saga.
Yeah, you bringing up that speech, that speech was crazy, because that is it's like a Luffy speech, but almost better. And I hate saying that, but it's because of who it's coming from, and who he's saying it to. Because, that's why we like Luffy saying, I'm going to be king of the pirates a lot of the time, is, he says it to really strong people. He doesn't, bat an eye. He says it very legitimately and seriously. And that's, to see somebody else do that, especially it being Buggy, especially against the world's strongest swordsman and Croc, who, yes, he lost to Luffy before, but he's like a master planner, right? So seeing all that happen, man, I'm glad you said it. It hit me emotionally, for sure. That was I think I said it like this in the stream, but that's what One Piece is about, is casting aside your doubts and, going for whatever dream it is, no matter how crazy. So,
exactly, man. And with Buggy, we've not really seen too much of what his ambitions are going to be in the series. We know he loves treasure and stuff like that, but to see, like I said, that flashback and see how crushed he was by Shanks not going after the One Piece and following in Roger's footsteps was detrimental to his character growth. And to see him call out and be like, what was that spark that ignited in you that took you to the sea, to his crew, and just it's exactly like you said, man. It's what One Piece is all about. It's about those dreams and those ambitions and igniting that flame to go out to sea. Oda has just been cooking. I say it in all of my videos about chapter reviews, is he's a madman, and he's just been popping off. Since we got to Egghead Island, it has not stopped.
Yep, and I would even argue, yes, since we got to Egghead, but I would even say it's since the literal millisecond our ships left Wano. Because, even when, Law, Kid, and Luffy all left Wano, they left by, jumping off the waterfall. And that, to me, that was just as I was rereading that the other day, actually. And whenever I was rereading it, knowing all the stuff after it, that almost hit me as, man, Oda told us, it's just craziness from here. The second we leave Wano, they did, they just went straight down the waterfall, right back in the ocean. They were, competing with each other. And for me, that was man, that's the sign right there. It's full steam ahead, no hesitation, The gloves,
that's
are
a
off.
good analogy, man. That is a great analogy for it. I agree 100%.
Yeah, and it's so crazy because I was looking for something else, for a video, completely separate from that. And I was like, oh, man, that's... Now that we also know that the other two lost, you know what I mean? It's also, a little beefier. Man, those guys left with so much hope, 6 months ago in real time, and now they're crushed, so...
So do you think Law and Kid are out of the race for King of the Pirate for good?
Well, if we're talking King of the Pirates, I think it's pretty clear that they aren't gonna actually be King of the Pirates, right? But I think that, could they work with the other crews who are gonna make it there, and so they get there tangentially, you know what I mean? They aren't the Pirate King, but they still get there. That I can see a world. And actually, I don't know. Since we're talking about Kid, Elids, I don't know if you want to talk at all about your Kid idea now that we're on the topic, because I did watch the short, and I was kind of curious, but I don't know how much of that you want to spoil. But since we're talking about Kid,
in terms of Kid, I think there's certain things in the story that go to show Oda is setting up a lot more, and it's funny because his backstory wasn't included in the manga, and you could argue that presents itself as showing that it's not important enough for it to be relegated to the SBS. But at that same token, the fact that Oda felt the need to put it in the SBS could also point to the fact that there is still something relevant there. There's still something there to grasp to show that Kid has more in the future, and that is the topic of his ship's name, the Victoria Punk. He presents it as, well, he had this girlfriend and they named it in her honor. Well, in my most recent videos, I've been really harping on the Going Merry of the Straw Hats and the relevance, because we know the Thousand Sunny is symbolic of Luffy's fruit, the sun god Nika. So then what about the Going Merry? So I made this theory about how I believe Joy Boy is representative of Jesus. His mother's name was Mary, M-E-R-Y, which is synonymous with joy, like the Virgin Mary, and all of that. So then I started to look at Kid, and his ship is called the Victoria Punk. Well, what are the chances that Kid's ship just so happens to be the Roman god equivalent of Nika, which is the goddess of victory? In fact, that's the word where victory comes from, Victoria. So that interesting coincidence is what got me on this path of looking into why it is Kid and his fruit might be way more important than we initially believed.
And I love that, because I've said this 100 times, while Kid's, obviously has a lot to figure out right now, his magnetism fruit has to be important in some way, or at least, because the magnetism itself is important in One Piece, right? Extremely important. And we've never fleshed out at all the fact that he has the powers of magnetism, which, again, we don't know this for sure, but I would imagine if he could figure it out, it could alter everything we know of in terms of traveling in One Piece, with log poses. So I've been waiting for that to come back. Yeah, it's heavy stuff. And I guess on the topic of whether Kid is done or whatever, I think I've mentioned this on stream before, but I really hope he teams up with Loki in some form or fashion. Yeah, what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I like that. And just to feed on the magnetism too, I think Kid will be very relevant in getting to Lodestar Island. That's very loose, if I'm being honest, because the word load, the definition of it is a high deposit of magnetic material.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of ties back to the Jiki no Mi for sure. So I don't think he's done in the series completely.
Yeah, I'm with you. And, you know, like, obviously he was, like, sent into the ocean and his ship was broken. So for me, it's like, you know, it looks like he's dead, but, like, Oda, for one thing, has anyone even drowned in One Piece ever? Like, it's a story about pirates, and I don't think anyone's ever drowned. So, that, you know, I don't think it's happening with Kid.
It's almost like their weakness is the sea as well. It's crazy.
Yep.
And Decken, in a way, did drown. He just did not die. Well, he did drown, but in Decken.
True.
But if I could piggyback off what Elders was saying about the Nika name and stuff, I think Oda's referencing tons of different series and the best kind of literature and series that we've seen. And my wife and I we were recently watching Sopranos, and the final season.
Great show.
Tony Soprano's sister Janice has a daughter, and the entire time they're there at the cabin, she calls her Nika. So this buzzed my spidey senses, and I looked it up, and it was because her name is Dominica, and Dominica actually means Lord. And I wonder if Oda's kind of playing off the Victoria stuff and all that with Nika, but I also wonder if he's playing with the girl named Dominica and Nika for that too.
I love that you said that, because one of my first videos, I think it was the video that got me past 1,000 subs, I think, was like False God Nika, and I stated how like the name Nika, like Ni is 2, so it's almost like immediately you could look at the name and be like, okay, this is like not the first version of the name, which like isn't 100% accurate, but that's just like the way I was thinking of it. And so you're talking about this Dominica thing, like it could be like tying off that name. I was saying it could be tying off the name Ichika, which is usually a girl's name, because that's like Nika but with 1 instead of 2 in the front. And it's like maybe their name was Ichika, and they just said like, oh, my name is Nika, like it was the first thing they thought of to like hide their real name, you know, because they're not good at lying, because Luffy's not good at lying, right? Luffy's nicknames are Luffy, Taro, and Lushi, right? So
well, and that's kind of the thing. Nika's got a ton of meanings or whatever. The main ones are either a marriage between animals or victory and all that stuff, whatever. But it also, in a bunch of languages, means to give or to present something or whatever. So like the sun giving us life and all that stuff or whatever. But all of them seem to be female names, and it makes me think of in Egyptian mythology, there's like the Eye of Ra and the Eye of Wedget and all this stuff, and all of them are always presented as an embodiment of this energy inside of a female. There's never a male version of these things. Osiris, all them, whatever, they might go along the journey with those people, but the actual sun energy is always embodied in a female. And I do personally think that's a lot to do with Nami.
Yeah, and man, there's like a lot I want to piggyback off of there, but yeah, I agree with that. The biggest thing I want to say is you mentioned Osiris, and I just have to say, because you said the name, shout out the stream I did with Randy Troy, because we came up with a theory about reassembling Joy Boy, and it's based off the legend of Osiris. And yeah, and he's working on a video on it, so hopefully that'll be out soon. But
Exodia Joy Boy.
Yep. Anytime it comes up, I got to mention it. But yeah,
it's something really crazy for what you're saying or whatever. Every single Straw Hat member seems to represent some part of the body. When we first meet them, it's usually what we first see. Zolo means ear. I know that's like the English translation of the Viz is Zolo with an L. That actually means ear. Well, the first thing we actually see of Zoro is his ear. And the panel is from the left. It's just his face from the side. We see his ear with the earrings and then his face. It also can mean nose. Nami seems to represent the left hand, which the index finger itself, index pointing, it meant adventurer and it meant navigator. So every single Straw Hat member, if you look through their very first introduction and what we first see in the panel, reading wise, seems to represent the part that they might represent of this Osiris, Jesus Christ body, whatever reassembling thing.
Yeah, where do I piggyback off of there? Yeah, the as far as like the body parts go, I like that a lot, and I don't know all of them, but what I would hope is that Robin is the eyes. I don't know if that's accurate, but it's just because
I think the eyes and the bangs, the bangs of the hair.
Because for me, and I've been talking about this a little bit recently, is she has the flower fruit, but what does that really do? It spawns body parts, and what does she use those body parts for? To get information, right? Like she popped her eyes and ears into the tree, like the tree of knowledge, to learn the ancient language while they were studying, right, or whatever. Like she wasn't supposed to be there. And then you look at like Emu, who always see her eyes, and they can apparently tap into transponder snails and like launch attacks. And Robin has the flower fruit, and Emu is found in a flower room, and all the princesses have flower names. So like, I've been thinking that a lot lately. There's going to be some connection between Robin and Emu. I don't know what it is.
There's a color spread. I think it's 1042, and she's got a finger in a skull's eye as well. Like,
oh dang.
There's also, as the French expert here, the French community expert, I think there's a reason why Robin is Russian from nationality, because in history in France, their biggest rival every time was Russia in terms of knowledge. They were always with the Tsar back in the day, like 1,000 years ago. France has always seen. So the biggest thing is there's a reason why Napoleon's biggest L was doing the most stupidest stuff, is going up to Russia in winter. There was a reason why. So it's also makes sense.
Wow, I might have to think about that a little more, because you could also say like Robin went to Tequila Wolf during the time skip, and that was like snowy and wintry. You know what I'm saying? And and that led to like a lot of new info from the Revs. So that I might have to think about that a little bit. Man, y'all are cooking. Okay.
My big thing with what you were saying about the Emu stuff and kind of eavesdropping is I think that she has the Eve fruit, which is I think that the big secret to the devil fruits is that each word of it is a different word. So gum would be two separate words. Gum mean one thing, the second gum means something else. So the Eve fruit would be EVE like Adam and Eve, and then EAVE like a eavesdropping, a sealing. When we see the Pluton talked about, the most prominent thing in the image when they're talking with Tom is the roof of the building they're in. And I do wonder if she's got some sort of a eavesdropping fruit where she can see certain things and then drop certain things on them, all sorts of things like that.
Yeah, that's why I like Dire Regulus's emu theory with the transponder snail. You know what I mean? Like emu is a snail or whatever it is. Something close to that. Yeah, whatever. But yeah, I agree with you. Emu knows what's going on in the world, like at all times, is what it seems like. Like, that's why people are like, we're gonna get erased if we talk about it, that kind of stuff. So, So yeah, I'm with that. Real quick, I want to move on to another topic real quick.
Can I just say one last thing?
Yes, go ahead.
Right, I was thinking, like, there's a few callbacks here. I'll be quick. Firstly, I agree with Elids, and like, I know that, like, I said it in my video a couple of weeks ago, like, the kid slander is at an all-time high, and I get that. Like, there's plenty of reason, right? He's like a big bag of L's, but, like, just bear with that dude. Like, his name's Kid. Like, he'll become a man Chad. Just trust me. Like, he's not my favorite or anything. He'll come back. Also, it ties into something we saw in the chapter. Like, Firstly, I think if you look at all the chapters of One Piece and rank them in terms of like how spicy they are in terms of the core story, this is definitely a chapter that's really, really up there. Like all the characters that are involved are old OGs, proper OGs, and it also made me realize like Buggy like obviously doesn't respect anyone, right? And then it like totally makes sense why he wouldn't respect anyone, because the one person he respects is the GOAT, like is Shanks. So everyone else to him is wash. The other thing I was going to say, which is important, I think, for like people to start noticing, is we just saw Buggy get a new ship, and that ship is also for Mihawk and Crocodile. What have we just seen with the other supernovas? Their ships have all been destroyed except for Luffy's, right? So we can assume that there's some sort of like, this is the baptism, like all of them have been defeated and now they're all going to come back and they're all going to have new ships, probably I don't know, Grand Fleet Sails or Black Sails or something, and they'll all be on one team. And then the last thing I was going to say is it's pretty unbelievable that Sabo is about to tell Dragon, not just anyone, but Dragon, like what he just saw, which we assume is Emu. So that's it. Like you were saying earlier, this is it. One Piece is sort of over. Like we're in the last like big saga. And then, sorry, one more thing. You mentioned Emu and Dyer's theory, which is a brilliant theory. If you haven't seen that, check that out. It's like essential. But we just saw in 1082 they mention the 3 dots or whatever to say that it's a code to show that like Sabo's safe, right? And you see people in the community now like sort of going at it like, oh, it's bullshit, like, excuse my French, oh, it's not cool, like it wasn't very clear. But I bet you money that the reason why Oda included that is because it's going to tie into Emu tracking these snails. Like now Emu might know the code, and if she knows the code, it means she can probably find out where the Revolutionary Army is, and that'll instigate like the final, you know, the big push. But anyway, I'm sorry, I'm done.
No, you're good. No, you were cooking. And it's funny because the next question I was about to pull up is one for you, because it's kind of tying to some of this final saga stuff. So you're gonna cook more in a second, but I do want to echo a little bit of what you said, especially about the ships. That is not something I've thought of, where, you know, Kid and Laws both got destroyed, and that it's almost like it's like Blackbeard said, whenever your ship is destroyed, you can't even call yourself a pirate crew. And so and so as we get closer to the end, like, are we just gonna, is that gonna continually be the symbol of defeat? Is like, we see the shit, like everyone, like, you know, like Blackbeard, he has log raft, so he doesn't really care if his current ships get destroyed. Like they've been destroyed multiple times before. But the Saber of Zebek will be different. Like whenever he busts that out, that's gonna be some serious stuff, right? And
the next level stuff,
yeah. I would love
I mean,
that.
it wouldn't surprise me if Blackbeard's next ship was Pluton, but that's a whole nother discussion.
Don't worry, I got an ancient weapons panel, or like sign, you know, so we'll talk about that later. But Den, I'm gonna let you keep cooking for a second, because I think this is gonna be a good building off point for a lot of other stuff. Is oh, hold on, I just messed something up. Oh, now we're good. Who is the man marked by flames?
So in the video we speculated a few things, Nico and myself, and there's, well, you already know, like, who I actually think it is Saturn. And I'm not like, yo, it's definitely Saturn, but there's reason.
I am.
The main thing that like triggered me was that, well, like when I saw his cane, I was making another video, and I saw his cane on the PNG, and it was like a whirlpool shape, and I was like, oh god, here we go. And then I noticed the burn scar, and I've always looked at the hair, and the hair's quite distinct of all of them, but it doesn't really, I could never really read much. But then I noticed it's like, okay, this is a grayish like hair. All these characters that we're seeing at the moment have burn scars, like Killer, Saul, and they're all got ties to O'Hara. So I'm guessing this will all culminate, like the mini arc, or the boss at the end of this arc will be Saturn, and it will be him that's responsible for the destruction of O'Hara. Also, we can probably talk about it later. I haven't spoken much about it, but this is the first time we're seeing a sea fruit properly. Like, this fruit could really, really be like, you know, a rain god fruit or something like that. It could be some major game changing fruit. So yeah, it makes sense that like someone that old, someone that powerful gets such a power, in my opinion. But that's my take.
Yeah, and I would love to get everyone else's take on the man marked by flames in a second, but just to piggyback off of your theory, because I know we messaged about it a little bit. So I just pulled up an image on screen that for me it was one of the biggest selling points. Like hearing your theory and then having this like image in the back of my head, I was like, oh my god, it all makes so much sense. So I've been saying for a while that the shadow thing on Egghead that attacked the camera, you know, we still don't have an answer for that, right? We don't know who that is yet for sure. And if you compare Saturn's like face and hair structure to the shadow, it looks very similar. Like it has like a round head, and then like it gets all like the hair. Like if you look at I have it on stream. I don't know if you guys can look at it, but that to me is like, okay, that's definitely possible. And then
Yeah, someone drew a line around it once, right? And it
Mhm.
does look like exactly like his hairstyle. And also, I've only just realized it now, but that can't be York, right? Because York's huge, which is
Yeah.
kind of clever on Oda's part. But anyway,
and wasn't York turned to stone around then? And like it's a shadow.
yeah.
Like if it was York, I don't think they would have a hard time telling it's York. You know what I'm saying? Like
Exactly. Yeah.
so for me, I think that is just straight up an actual shadow, because they were like, what was that thing? Like they were, so basically ending point is that I think that this Saturn situation, like that shadow thing, that tells me right there, like, okay, well, the hard part about Saturn being the man barked by flames is that he's in Marigeois all the time. So it's like, how is he on a black ship making whirlpools and at Marigeois, because we've seen him there so many times? Well, this right here, the shadow, if this is true, that's evidence that he can be in two places at once. Like maybe he's able to, like, it sounds crazy, but like maybe he can just separate his own shadow from his body, like willingly, so his shadow's in one place.
I mean,
the
possibilities, like someone hearing what you're saying, in my opinion, might think like, oh, like he can project his thing, like his soul or will,
astral
or whatever,
projection.
But, like,
yeah.
Ultimately, the potential is crazy, because if you live in Marigeois around Emu and you know Emu exists, Emu might be able to do that for you. They might all be able to like zip into certain places. So yeah, but
I'm gonna jump in. It's not my headcanon, but you guys are talking about shadows, and Den knows my obsessive Disney inspiration, the Disney movies and One Piece. And I've been saying the lore of Thriller Bark plus what they said about Nika's fruit, as long as you always believe in it, that's Peter Pan. That's all about Peter Pan. And you think about it, Peter Pan's shadow, it was the embodiment of his own will. So even Peter Pan did not think of it, it reacted to his will. So that's why Peter Pan would always fight with him, because he would have doubt, but the shadow would always act without a doubt, which is also how we describe Conqueror's Hawking, acting without a doubt. So I do feel like shadows might have much bigger importance in the world of One Piece.
I'm with you. Oh, go ahead.
That's a perfect segue into what I wanted to mention about Nika and Joy Boy, and part of why I think they are sheep mix. I do believe there's going to be a huge Greek influence in the story of One Piece, which should be obvious because the ancient weapons are named after Greek gods. And one of the Greek gods is named Pan, and he is a satyr. And we've actually seen satyrs in the story that have been half sheep. Oda made a point to make them sheep. Oftentimes, he just loves going with sheep rather than goats. Whenever he has the opportunity, he'll do sheep instead of goats. Except for the time when he showed those bald horned angels in Skypiea. But it's a special note that they're bald and they don't have hair. I think when they have hair, it would probably be an afro, and that's what makes them sheep. But beyond that, Pan is known not just for being a satyr. That's nothing special. There's other satyrs. What makes him a god is he uses music to inspire others. He's considered a shepherd, which is sort of ironic that he himself would be a goat or a sheep, but he is also a shepherd, which I think is what's going to exist in One Piece. This sort of ironic thing. The Peter Pan thing is relevant for two reasons. One, this idea of an animal-based character ironically embracing the animal that they're supposed to lead or oppose, but also be at the same time, is in Crocodile. Because Crocodile is like the only pirate with a hook. And who's the most famous hooked pirate? Captain Hook. And who is his foe? So you see, that's what Oda likes to do. He likes to combine the two into one, which is why I think Joy would be like Jesus, because he, good shepherd, right? It's the sheep and the shepherd, and he combines it into one. So with this idea of Peter Pan, well, Peter Pan is based off Pan. Pan uses music to inspire, which we know about Nika and Joy Boy and the drums of liberation. Well, I think there could actually be some meta fourth wall breaking thing going on in the world of One Piece, where in our real world, certain characters are based off of others. For example, you look at Homelander from The Boys or Omni-Man from Invincible, who are obviously based off of Superman. So I think Oda might do something where there are these characters that are based off of other characters in the past. So for example, I think Joy Boy and Nika didn't exist at the same time, but rather Joy Boy emulated himself after Nika. So what if he's doing something where these characters that are influenced off other characters in the past are parallel in the real world where we have characters that are influenced? So for example, there could be a Peter Pan character in the world of One Piece that is based off a Pan character in the world of One Piece. And let's go forward. One of the most iconic characters that I believe is based off Peter Pan is Link from The Legend of Zelda. Shout out to Kev DOG. He has a fantastic video
top tier
showing he believes that Egghead is highly based off of Legend of Zelda.
Link's Awakening specifically.
Game I can't remember.
Link's Awakening.
Link's Awakening.
Which is like Luffy's
you.
Awakening. Like, it's funny that Awakening and like fruits are discussed there. Anyway, keep cooking.
Yeah. So this idea of the being based off of this. So there could be a character that's based off of Link, that's based off of Peter Pan, that's based off of Pan. You see, it's like inherited will in a way through different generations and all these characters. So who could that be? Well, you know, Kev brings up the great point. It could be Bink. I mean, it rhymes. Binks, Link. So each character is based off one another, going constantly back in time. This is supported by Vegapunk's theory of devil fruits, that it's based off of the wishes and desires. It's like this collective consciousness. It's like a story. That's why it's meta and fourth wall breaking, because we're witnessing the story of One Piece. But then within the world of One Piece, it's like they're self-aware of the story itself, and that manifests as power within the world.
I love the way you put that, especially at the end with being self-aware of the story themselves, kind of. Because I'm kind of working on a video right now that kind of discusses that in a sense. It's about the importance of announcers in One Piece, because like they don't. A lot of the time, people just think they. And I mean, you could maybe make some extrapolations to real life. I think I wouldn't get too specific on that, but they all are misled by the newspaper and the government and everything to think like everything's fine, go live your life, whatever, this is the way things are and this is how it's supposed to be, blah blah blah. But it's not, right? Like, there's a whole history they don't know about. The world government's doing so many shady things they don't know about, and the people who reveal that, and kind of like you're saying, it's letting them know that no, there is a story going on here and you're a part of it. Even if it's not. Even if they don't know, they're in a story of One Piece, they know, there's a history that's erased. Like, your government's doing crazy stuff. Like, you don't even know the story. Like, you don't understand. And announcers are the gateway to figuring it out. That's all I was gonna say.
Sorry to interrupt. I was gonna say, you can really see that in Kaido Luffy's fight, where, because the narrator, we still don't know anything about the narrator. The narrator declares Kaido the winner. And then a few chapters later declares Luffy the winner. So it's like a real nice in-world reminder that history is what's written down, not actually what happens.
Exactly, and it's
amazing the way you put it. You said the gateway. Well, there's the character Gats, which is similar to the word gate, and Oda put so much emphasis on Gats. If you notice throughout, because I binged Dressrosa, and I took notice. I was like, wait a second, why does Oda keep putting emphasis on this character who has no fights, isn't part of a pirate crew? Yeah, he just kept on putting emphasis on Gats. I think he might even have a chapter named after him or something. Why does Oda care about this character so much?
You're preaching right now, Elids. That's one of my favorite characters in all of One Piece. That's half of the video is me gushing about how much because like you're saying, he shouldn't be relevant. He's just Oda took the token announcer guy that a lot of manga arcs have, a lot, pretty much, I shouldn't say pretty much every, but a lot of the most popular anime series have a tournament somewhere or something similar to that, and there's always an announcer, and they're usually just a token announcer guy, right? They're not sometimes they're special, but usually it's just they announce the tournament and that's it. But Gats, or Gats, however you want to pronounce it, whatever. But Oda made him so relevant. He literally, he was just calling the fights, but then it shifted towards, talking about the narrative of Dressrosa. Okay, Doflamingo's a bad guy. We need Luffy to beat him, which is, Like, dude, like earlier that day, these people woke up thinking they're still living in paradise and whatever, right? And then later that day, they're the announcer who they trust. He's the gateway to finding out the truth. That's like Morgan's has a very similar role. And then by the end of the day, they're listening to him like, okay, we need to trust a pirate to defeat the guy who's been ruling us this whole time, that we've loved and thought saved us from King Riku. Like he was that layer of trust for everybody. And so then you take that up a level. What he is to Dressrosa is what Morgan's is to the whole world, right? Like it's the exact same thing. And that's pretty much what my video is about, is like whenever we get towards the end of the series, there is only one man who's going to be able to convince the world of how they should feel about what's going on. Because like you look at Marineford, that they were cheering on the Marines in Marineford. Even when it was over, they were like, yes, like the Marines won, Whitebeard got defeated, we're saved, like, the world's okay. Like, no, like whenever we get to the final war, they aren't going to be saying that, and someone has to tell them and explain why, and it's going to be Morgan's.
Nice.
I completely agree, by the way. Like, I think, like, I said it maybe last time I was on, and I won't go into it now, but Morgan's is Cypherpole, basically. Like, there's just they're two different sides. Like, Morgan's is for those who don't know, Morgan's is actually a human, and he's a zone fruit user. And then you've got Lafitte, who wears human clothes, very similar clothes to Morgan. We see human clothes worn by like other birds that are zones, like Tamago, stuff like this. And yeah, and obviously he controls the most sensitive information of the world. And interestingly, we have that situation that I guess not many people talk about anymore, but the picture of Gear 5 Luffy, that all Nika, made it to the newspaper, and we still don't know how. And that might be, you know, that it's all about, like, if any of you have seen John Wick, you've got the Bowery King, and no one can like affect his communication or whatever because he uses birds, and that's exactly what we get with Big News Morgan. He uses birds, which means they can't be hacked, they can't be stopped by, like, you know, Will or Hacky and stuff like that. So, well, and yeah, it's a real cool character.
And that could not be a better segue to the next topic I was hoping to talk about, because you're saying that the birds can't be hacked or swayed or whatever, you know, whatever. Basically, they're trustworthy, whatever, to go deliver the paper and whatever, right? Well, one way around that might be good old. Like, now I gotta fix my Streamlabs. Give me a second. There it is. One way to get around that would be hypnotism. Okay, so, and if you think about it, we know that Mr. Lafitte can hypnotize people, and he also has a bird fruit. So, that builds an interesting possible situation, because we know Lafitte is an instigator, or an intruder, or, you know, whatever you want to call it. Like, he can get stuff done without anyone noticing. So I guess I'm going to hand this over to the resident expert on the topic, Kube. Can you walk us through some hypnotism ideas that you had in your video?
So yeah, well, basically, for those who haven't seen my video, I'm gonna go to the bread and butter. Is basically Django's importance to the story isn't canon-wise. This is his cover story, his SBS, in which basically Oda does not only explain how he gets his power, which is not even a devil fruit. He sleeps, wakes up, has a mushroom on his chin. And basically, after eating that mushroom, that tastes disgusting, which is very devil fruit-like, he finds out he has the ability to influence people's actions and thoughts. And so my definition for hypnosis, and when you take into account, there are even devil fruits that have hypnotic effect even if they're not hypnosis, like Hancock or Corona's fruit. It's the ability with your desire to influence someone's actions or thoughts to the one who's doing the hypnotism to the victim. And Django even says, I could potentially change somebody's entire personality if I wanted to, without giving basically the limit of it. So I think
there is so much evidence for this. Like, it's not possible to like convey it, remember it all, but there is just so much about it. Crazy, like.
And I want to ask this, Cube, because I'm not sure if you said it explicitly in your video. You kind of hinted to it earlier. Do you think that mushroom is a devil fruit, or is it adjacent, like something else, something random?
Yeah. Because my whole thing about, I think the label devil fruit is weird, because I don't think the rules of not being able to swim underwater is a rule, but more like post-cursed, or post-punishment, like the illness, if you in a way. Like there's something for a reason, like it's not part of it. So I do think that devil fruit, the Germa DNA with the raid suits, the shadows is like I think it's a concept of mind, body, and spirit. Shadows is the host, the soul, and goes into a person. The person is the mind, which is similar to Dao fruits. And I think the Germa DNA would be the same thing with a raid suit. You need a host, you need a DNA, that would be like the body, and then basically that ability would be part of the mind. So I think it's something like that. So hypnosis is more how you influence and manipulate people. And you can even say that Luffy, Usopp, and Buggy can be considered as sometimes hypnotists with their ability to influence people too, especially Buggy and Usopp.
Yes.
In Dressrosa and in Marineford. Without them, I used to say that in Impel Down, they don't get all those extra manpower without Buggy. And in Dressrosa, if you don't have Usopp, you do not get the manpower you have. So like, it is very important. And what I'll say as a script leak, it is part of my God Valley Part 2, is that every hypnosis, the canon-wise that Oda has showed, are connected to one of the 5 senses, and they're all arts in the form of the art. And when Lucia was blown up, if you zoom in on the pen, Imu was using a paintbrush, which I believe he altered the narrative and did not just destroy the island. That's why I was in shock for the last chapter of Sabo returning.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just a little bit of manga expertise. That paintbrush that she used in particular is called a mushroom brush. So I think it all ties into this idea of hypnotizing and kind of altering the reality of the One Piece world.
Yeah. And I have to say, I like that you brought up Lafitte, because I think from all the hypnotists in the world of One Piece, he's one of the most important, because in my theory, I talk about Clockwork Orange, a book and movie that talks about that, and it's all about prescribed good behavior. And it's in a world where it's basically Kaido's island. It's chaos, but the world government do not care about those people who are destroying things, as long as they follow the status quo and they condition people who are not able to stand in line. Basically, people like Luffy or Kid would have been under that influence because they're like alpha. They want to do their own thing. They're not following the status quo. While people, let's say, like Rob Lucci or Kaku, who seem to know how to follow orders, they'll be part of it, which me and Den were big believers that Lucci could be more of there's something close to that with Lucci. But, and Lafitte has a lot of inspiration from the main character of Clockwork Orange. The police officer, former police officer who can smile and beat up people, while the main character was just like Lafitte in personality-wise, and his friends who did not go through the same treatment became police officers, and were very brutal and hiding behind the badge. So there's like a lot of Clockwork Orange around Lafitte.
And I guess I'll just ask this because I saw Lucas put a little chat in there. What do we think about Hattori and Lafitte being connected? Either Hattori being Lafitte, which might be tough. But...
I did mean Hattori. I said Lafitte because of the because of all the theories and stuff that have been going around.
Because for me, I think at the worst, Hattori could be a hypnotized pigeon who's been helping out Blackbeard without Lucci knowing that. Because
in my opinion, we see Lafitte has some type of devil fruit that gives him wings. I think he ate like a bird fruit model pigeon, and he has control over other pigeons as well.
I like that.
I don't have much basis on that, but there's just something about Hattori, his design, the little hat and stuff he wears. And yes, I know Rob Lucci wears a hat as well, and it kind of mirrors that.
Right.
But he looks so much like Lafitte. I know that's weird to say, but there's that close-up in the anime on Water 7 where they're watching Galley Law burn, and it just closes up on Hattori's eyes and stuff, and I'm like, that's Lafitte. That is Lafitte right there.
I mean, there's a scary amount of connections. Like, undoubtedly, you could put them side by side, and anyone would be like, "Oh, they could be each other." The one thing that, like, the most important thing for me about all of it is Hattori's age is interesting, because Hattori was with Lucci as a kid, and despite how young Lucci looks now, he's old, right? Or getting there. So Hattori's old as chuff, like really, really old, and well, I don't know that, but it definitely seems that way.
And part of me wonders, like, building off of that, like, how big brain is Blackbeard's plan? Because we don't know how long Blackbeard's really been with his crew. Like, we can surmise that he wasn't with them until after he left Whitebeard's ship, I would guess. But even then, it's like, we know Blackbeard was planning to get that fruit from a very young age. What if he literally knew Hattori, I mean, maybe that's the right person, but he knew Lafitte a long time ago, like well before he even got on Whitebeard's ship. Because remember, whenever we met the Blackbeard pirates on Jaya, Lafitte wasn't with them, but they said like, we're here to get Lafitte, right? Which like builds immediately a connection of Lafitte's never with them, right? He's always separate. And because like I feel like that's like a pretty clear writing thing. Like if in the crew's introduction the guy's not there and they're like, he's somewhere else, right? Like that's like, okay, that's a common, that's a trait. Like that's, they've been doing that for a while. And so
an interesting like little tidbit to back that up is like, don't forget that Lafitte is a sheriff. And what's Blackbeard's name? Marshall.
Ooh.
Marshall's working the sheriffs,
I like that.
So like if you're influencing someone, then you're above them.
But I think you're onto something, because I've been saying that is that we know Blackbeard is the one with the 20-year plan, and the connection with rocks is crazy. And I do feel that when Vegapunk said it wasn't my plan to put Stussy in Cypher Pole 20 years ago, I'm wondering if that Stussy might have met a young Blackbeard. So with that logic, and she's in Cypher Pole, maybe that's how also he has connection to Hattori or Lafitte. Because I felt like that was really Blackbeard. That's really Blackbeard thing. Like he would have capitalized on it 20 years ago.
Yeah, see, I'm so glad you brought that up, because one thing with Stussy for me is like, it feels so weird to have like a government agent, a top tier one that's also an underworld broker, all of a sudden switch to our side, and that's like the end of it. Like that doesn't seem like there's more with this character. And so if we go back to like their connection to rocks and all that, like maybe that's it. Like maybe when like these clones were made and somehow Blackbeard might be tied to that. Like not that he is a clone of rocks exactly, but maybe there's some connection there. And
it could be a God Valley situation, right? Like like Blackbeard could have been there. He could have been like one of the kids that they're experimenting on, or something like that. Like it seems pretty shitty.
Yep. Yeah. And whatever Blackbeard's background is, it's gonna be tragic. Like it's gonna be something where we are like, all right, like I get why he's doing this. Like one of those situations. And so like something deep like that, where he's like maybe not doing this against his will per se, but he's like been coaxed into it. Like I think it's gonna be very Orochi like. That's like the way I think of it, is he was like convinced of like the world is a certain way, and maybe it was rocks, and like because of the way he was, like he is a clone or something messed up, from that stuff. And it could be just like he's been warped into the spot he's in now because of his upbringing, and it's like people misled him and stuff. So I definitely think, and also Orochi's fruit, like if you just look at it that way, it has like 8 heads or whatever, and Blackbeard's Jolly Roger has 8 crossbones. So there's like already connections there. So yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. There's a nutty panel that we found quite recently, which is if you look at Whitebeard's I think it's Marco's telling the backstory of Whitebeard, and it's a picture of Whitebeard on Sphinx Island, and there's a few kids in the background, and he's a kid, he's about 10-11 years old, and the speech bubbles on the panel, they say like Whitebeard was here because like there was war-torn nations everywhere and kids ended up coming here, right? Kind of similar to Sheep's House. But I promise you, anyone who looks this up right now, if you look in the background of that panel, you will see a kid sat in the exact same position as Blackbeard when we see him under the moon crying. But instead of it being Blackbeard, it's just Sebek. You can see with the hair, it's just the child version of Sebek. Wow. And they're talking about being displaced through war-torn like war and stuff like that. So yeah, it's really interesting.
Damn. Yeah. That
I
want to
get pretty tinfoil hat here.
Put the tinfoil hat on.
Suggest that we're like wondering, is Blackbeard scheming back that far? Who could be behind Lafitte somehow going undercover within whatever government, whether it's going spying Mary Joie or within the Cypher Pole, all those things. But what's funny is one of the things I think a lot of people take for granted, mostly because it just feels like you're chasing nothing, is the fact that we still don't know who the Lurking Legend is. And why doesn't Oda just outright say, oh, it's this character? There's a lot of people we can point to and be like, oh, it's obviously this, but Oda still hasn't said it. So it's like, what is he Why is he doing that? I know he has editors that is tapped into what the fandom ask and what they want. They would have definitely told him like, hey, you should probably just tell him it's this person, so they stop wondering it. Now, there could still be somebody in the background that is pulling the strings and manipulating so many things going on. I talked to Mr. Bushido a lot about this. Shout out to Mr. Bushido.
Shout out to Mr. Bushido for sure. I don't know if he's here today. He might be busy.
We have Morgans, right? And he describes himself as the DJ of the world. And what's interesting about the word DJ that's irrelevant is that it's the same initials as Davy Jones. Do with that what you will. That's actually not the point I'm about to make. The other initials is more direct. It's disc jockey. So what is a disc jockey? Well, we know it's someone, you know, when you're playing records and they'll do whatever they do to spice things up. But if you take it literal, a jockey is a horseman. This idea of horseman is something that has come up throughout One Piece many times. And most relevantly, you look at Wano, and Kaido's commanders, the All-Stars, were obviously based off the Horsemen of Apocalypse. And I believe this is something Oda's been setting up for a very long time. He even said at one point he wanted Doflamingo to be a part of that, but then he decided to give him his own arc. So we know Doflamingo could have played some kind of role in that. And the reason I bring that up is because he also is someone that manipulates a lot. He was the king of the underworld, pretty much. So when you start putting these things together, a jockey, the underworld, I think it really starts to help us realize who could be in the background, or at least help us to understand where they're going with this person in the background. And I truly believe it's going to involve the underworld, because that's how you get around being sneaky. Now, if you look at Blackbeard's crew, right? He has the Yami Yami no Mi, that's darkness. Obviously, that's sort of like evil and demonic. He has Doc Q, who rides a horse, and now he rides a flying horse. That makes him like a horseman of apocalypse.
Yep. Pestilence.
What's interesting is that he recruited Shiryu, and then Shiryu ended up getting the clear fruit. And there's what's known as the Cap of Darkness, or the Cap of Hades. And Hades is the king of the underworld. And the Cap of Darkness has the power to make you invisible. So when you start clicking those things together, you realize there's so many underworld things going on and within the Blackbeard's crew. And the person who had the power of visibility way before Shiryu was Absalom, who had a very highly religious aesthetic. And Absalom, interestingly enough, is a lion man, and that should be a ringing alarm bells that Oda chose that man to be a lion man, because we know that lions are often attributed to the sun, especially in the world of One Piece.
Yep, Thousand Sunny.
And again, we're bringing up the Christian thing. I think people are sleeping on just how important Christian symbology is in the world of One Piece, because Absalom is from Judeo stories. He has crosses on him. And what's super interesting is Absalom is actually tied to Morgans. Morgans has the newspaper, right? One of the people who would provide pictures for that newspaper was Absalom under the name Absa. Just this almost throwaway detail Oda decided to give to us. So now we have a tie between Absalom and Morgans. What's super interesting is there's a picture of Absalom as a kid, and he is wearing a top hat for whatever reason. And he also just tried to, Oda put a picture, strong lion. So whenever I see a top hat, that instantly makes me think of Morgans. It also makes me think of Lafitte, and they are obviously similar to one another. They're like bird people. The other relevance of a top hat is Dr. Hiroluk. And it's never explained, and I'll go into this more when you ask about Korea, so I'm not gonna go deep into this, but it's never really explained where they're from. We just know that they know about the world. Korea knows about the Wheel of D. Dr. Hiroluk just knows so much about pirates and what they represent. So I believe that Morgans could be a Gorosei member. I have a video, he could be Venus. Him being the DJ of the world, manipulating what's going on throughout the world. I truly think he is either alone or with some other big figure is trying to manipulate events to overthrow the world government secretly. And that Absalom picture is so interesting because you see the top hat and then you see in the back Strong Lion. Well, the Strong Lion is very particular words because there's the film Strong World. The main character of that is Shiki, the golden lion. So what is this weird thing that could be going on putting them two together? Well, in the chapter 0, Shiki says that he has a plan. And it's, if you watch the movie Strong World, it's never really explained what that plan was. It's sort of just like he just doing things in the movie. And it's like, you could take out the whole, oh, I have a plan 20 years from now, and it wouldn't change anything about the movie. The movie is almost just him doing things. There's nothing there that shows, here's my 20-year-long plan or whatever, that Oda decided to put in chapter 0, which he wrote and all that. Dr. Bushido pointed out to me that there's like these interesting things after Marineford when it shows the new generation going into the new world. And one in particular is like floating, I think it was Beiji's, and then Apu started walking on air. And those are the two people who just so happened to join Yonko crews that also plotted to kill Yonko.
Mm-hmm.
So, with Absalom being tied to Shiki, possibly Shiki, and also Morgans, it really puts into the air that there could be so many different characters throughout the world of One Piece that we think are aligned with this person or that person, but is actually working for one central figure. And I made a video on this a while ago about how the Kurozumi elders, you know, Higurashi and them that were manipulating Orochi, it's also never explained where they came from. And they just so happened to look, one of Higurashi just so happened to look like Shiki, and just so happened to look like Stussy. Again, another person who for whatever reason is infiltrating Cypher Pole. So I truly believe Oda leave a whole bunch of breadcrumbs all over the place where you just so happen to mention Shiki one time through Higurashi and just happen to be in the rocks. All these different weird coincidences that, as tinfoil as it is, you can actually start to just draw lines and connection between all these different things, even if it's just one image that says Strong Lion or whatever. It really starts to paint a full picture. It may not be Morgans, it may not be Shiki, but I truly believe there's someone that he has yet to really explain that is not really on our radar, that is manipulating so many different people to do certain things that is going to come to fruition pretty soon in the story.
I might have a name.
Oh, go for it.
I've been people on the team have been hearing that, and I've been saying for years that Kizaru is the most suspicious person. And my brain, when he asked, and we're going with this headcanon. We don't know much about Kizaru and Vegapunk, but with the relationship with Sentomaru, it could make sense that it does seem that Vegapunk and Kizaru must be somewhat close, you know, with the light stuff that Vegapunk's done. And I don't understand, and that's I felt like it sounded very like Kizaru was testing the Gorosei. Why would he ask him? Has he ever met Dr. Vegapunk? Like he was sussing his answer out. And I always said like he hit the key on Luffy Marineford instead of killing him after the order was on to kill Luffy. It's like he does seem to have some weird interest around Luffy. He doesn't care that every time he fails with Luffy. Like him always surviving does not bother him, and especially that like when he asked Gorosei that question, I said, okay, there's something off about Kizaru. It's like there is something.
Kizaru literally saves Luffy from the middle of danger every single time in Marineford.
Yeah, I just don't understand. Why would you ask a Gorosei? Maybe Vegapunk, how he is, he seems to be kind of a blabbermouth. He would have known something to that extent with Vegapunk and the Gorosei. So why would he ask that question to the Gorosei? And it's made me think about, you know, a bit like mob bosses, godfathers, when they talk and they in movies and they try to suss each other out with asking a question that they already have the answers to. Kind of give me that vibe with Kizaru. But yeah.
I like
that's why
that.
I'm big on-
I feel like
Yeah.
that would be a really shocking answer, and it would also answer a question I brought up, which is, you know, of the original 3 admirals, the other 2 have moved on to bigger and better things, where Kizaru is the only one who's still in his old position. And it would be kind of fitting if the reason he never wanted to leave his post was because he can't, like, he's, you know, like sending information, or, you know what I mean, like him being in that role is too important for whatever he really is trying to do. Like maybe well, he doesn't. What is it? He doesn't have lazy justice, right? That's Aokiji. Right?
So
can't remember what
basically,
his is, but-
it was explained that we are uncertain on the sense of justice, and so basically named it the uncertain justice. We actually don't have no name for it.
Well, there you
it's
go.
Just uncertain.
That
It's like,
yeah, that I like that a lot. And like you said with the Vegapunk connections.
And I've been saying this, like, and the proof to it is with Arlong. He seems like fine with Arlong. He doesn't need to charge his light fruit, as in Sabaody. And I always wondered, what if his speech pattern, he's doing it on purpose? He's charging his word much longer. He's using his light ability to like change his way he's talking. Like his Aloga, might. Like, I always wonder, like, what if he's faking his being very slow talking?
Yeah, I could see that, and maybe it's like hiding an accent of some kind. You know what I mean? Like, so they don't know. Real quick, I want to give a shout out. I missed a couple of super chats and stuff. Saran Wrap, I will get to your first one. I really like it, so I've been waiting for a good chance to mention it. But Saran Wrap also just used another 100 bits and said, I wrote a theory that Kizaru is a spy for Vegapunk. What was the first devil fruit power he replicated for the pacifistas? Kizaru's lasers. And he says he couldn't recreate Logia powers. Something's up. I like that's super valid. Like, especially that last part where like, well, for one thing, Drake is the one who said that he recreated Kizaru's lasers, which is like, okay, like we know Drake's like with the Marines, but like how does he know that much intel? Like that's you know, because like but he's friends with Kube, and Kube knew a lot about Vegapunk too, so there's like a lot of connections right there with like Marines that are actually good people in Vegapunk, and then we have this Kizaru connection. So like, has Kizaru been an actually good guy this whole time? He's already my favorite admiral, but I cannot express how fast he would vault up the overall character charts for me if he ended up doing that, just because he's already dope. But you know, if he's been doing a long con this whole time as like the lazy guy, I would love it.
And also, like, and this is the last thing I'll say, and it's like there are only 2 outliers in the Marines. All of the other Marines joined either 17 to 20 years old or early 20s, and the only 2 who do not follow that is Akainu and Kizaru. But Akainu was kind of explained with an SBS, but Kizaru we never got an explanation. And what's interesting is, we don't know the exact date of the end of Matt, we know it's between 24 to 30 years ago, and he had joined a bit around 30 years ago, Kizaru, like when he was like 31 or 32.
Okay.
Which I find very interesting, that the timeline of him appearing in the world government is around the same time as Vegapunk was recruited in.
Oh wow.
Like
yeah, well, yeah,
like,
we're gonna find out about that soon. Like that. Yeah. That's what I'm like, because we obviously Oda's setting it up for that to matter, because Sentomaru is also hurt, right? Wow.
Oh, by the way, you know, because what's interesting is all these characters we're bringing up, again, all tied to one another. I mean, the most important time we met Kizaru was in his fight with Apu and Drake and Rouge, and who knows what the hell Rouge is doing. We know Drake is a double agent. We know Apu was willing to betray Kaido. But, you know, what's funny is, you know, I sound so crazy, but Apu also works for Morgan's, because remember, he was taking the pictures.
He does. 100%.
So I'm telling you, there's just so many odd connections that are to this idea that there's someone in the background manipulating.
And let me build you another couple connections, because I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to mention this earlier. So you brought up a lot of the Top Hat connections, and like basically, I mean, roughly speaking, like Top Hats can obviously tie to Morgan's, and Top Hats also seem to have some, I guess, Christianity in some way, just because Absalom, right? Like the connection with Absalom, he has all the crosses and stuff. Well, another Top Hat wearer that may have some kind of connection to all this is Brook, because he also obviously wears a top hat, or like not all the time, but he, you know what I mean? Like in his, you know, he has a couple of depictions of it. And just real quick, Brook walks on water, right? Like Jesus did. And then also you mentioned Shiki in Strong World. Well, Shiki called the incoming storm, it said it looked like an afro, and Brook has an afro. Like he was like visibly kind of freaking out at the storm coming in, and said it looks like an afro. And we know the D's bring a storm, and Brook has an afro also. So, this idea that top hats / maybe even afros have connections to kind of a lot of these, I don't even know what you want to call it, but like just Morgans, like the news or just information gathering or whatever. I like that. I like that a lot. And also Brooke is also a perfect person to like all these connections. Well, he has an immense amount of information, like intel, you know what I mean? Because he used to work for a government of a nation, right? He was like a part of the convoy. So right there he has some kind of, like, he knows about the Kingdom of Alabasta and stuff. And he just lived for 50 years before this, right? So,
but
Yeah.
I think it's even crazier because I tell people the way they describe that we were explained that Davy Jones was from way back, and he validated that he did exist. Like Cricket was sure that Nolan was never a liar. Like, Davy Jones really existed. And I'd say that is the weirdest thing ever. Like, it does seem to his knowledge to be. I'm saying this. It looks like he has voice entry knowledge, clearly.
Yeah.
And every time he's never in the room. Egghead, I called that before Egghead. What happens in Egghead? He's the only one not preview to any talk of the past. Like, every time. He's never there.
It hurts, man, because he would be speaking up for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, that's interesting because if you go back to when they were just finding about Sanji's lineage, they kept on talking about, I think it was about him being, I might have it backwards. It's one of the two, I'll tell you. It was either they were talking about him being a Vinsmoke, and when they finally showed that he was a Germa, Brooke was like, wait, what? He, they were gone like 400 years ago or whatever. And it's weird because he already knew about the family. So why is it when they brought up the other part, you would think Germa 66 and Vinsmoke are synonymous with one another. But he didn't say anything until he finally actually met Sanji's family. You'd have thought he would have just brought it up right away. So there's something weird going on in regards to that. And again, that's another thing that involves Morgans, because the Sora, Warrior of the Sea,
yes,
he wrote the story in the Economic Journal. And you brought up Brooke as the relevant top hat wearer of the Shark Crew. I would argue even more relevant is Chopper, because this whole story was about, in the background is about the top hat. And not a lot of people really hone in on this. When you really think about it, Chopper's backstory is so similar to Luffy's. Out of all the crew, his is like oddly identical to Luffy in a way. And now, more than ever, that's relevant because they both have the human fruit. So what is up with that? Is Oda setting up some weird thing that there's a parallel between Luffy and Chopper? And I think that could be relevant to devil fruits, because I have this theory about devil fruit gravity, that the devil fruits lure in certain types of people. So it actually makes sense that these two people that are similar to one another would get similar fruits. And Chopper then also brings in the Christianity things. He's based off a Christmas figure, Rudolph. His hat has a cross on it when you think of it as a plus, as it's supposed to be for medical. But then it's also an X, which also represents Christ. So yeah, the top hat thing, people sleep on the top hat.
Yeah, that's crazy. There's a lot of those. And talking about Chopper and his connections to, a lot of stuff, I could see a scenario where Joy Boy / maybe even Nika, going all the way back, because I agree with you that there's like sequentiality to these names. You know what I mean? Like they're maybe 800 years apart or whatever. It doesn't really matter. But maybe like the connection between all these is like they were also animals that like were outcasted and, found friends somewhere. And so like a couple connections to this. I mean, like Gaimon, in my opinion, is one of the ultimate connections to this, because like the treasure is literally like being friends with the creatures, like the rare creatures on the island. But also, I mean, Luffy's name is literally Monkey D. Luffy, right? Like he's already an animal, like a humanoid animal. I mean, like, yeah, like obviously the name is Monkey, but even like we evolved, you know what I mean, from apes, however long ago. And so it's like that could be a story right there, because what did Chopper do? He ate the Hito fruit and like became sentient, right? Like he got like human level consciousness. That's like the idea. But he's still a reindeer, like he's still fluffy and all that, but he has human level consciousness. Luffy may be an embodiment of that too, where like, like we evolved to this point, but he's an embodiment, because like even Vegapunk said, like all the devil fruits are evolution, like the furthest branches of evolution. And so it could be like Luffy is the embodiment of that, where Chopper did it real quick with the devil fruit. Luffy may be the embodiment of that, like as like humans, you know what I mean? Because we're like they evolved fully into like a different species or whatever. So it's like Luffy's the embodiment of that naturally over like many generations of time, becoming human, and Chopper did it like really quickly. So I think even that alone, like maybe Joy Boy or even Nika way back then, maybe they actually were a monkey, and Luffy is carrying that will, but just because of how biology works, it evolved to, they're humans now, but it's still the same monkey family. You know what I mean? I could definitely see some evolution aspect tying to Chopper there for sure.
Do you know?
Well, I got a question for Dak and everyone if they want to answer. That first volume that we meet Gaiamon, volume 3. Do you know the title of that volume?
You are a rare and precious animal. Well, that's the chapter title.
That's the chapter. The volume is called "Won't Get Fooled Again" in reference to the Who song. But do you have any idea what that could be referencing?
Tell me, Cook.
I personally think it's being fooled by this Afro forest god. Joy Boy, his whole thing, I know we all think it's a promise for whatever. I really think that when we see that little silhouette of him in Shirayoshi's mother's flashback, he's wearing a safari hunter's hat. And I really think that it was a mink or a fishman person who was pretty much tasked with the idea of killing all the humans on the surface. And then they fell in love with them, and they could not do it anymore. So they apologized for they couldn't complete this, eradication quest or whatever. And that Afro spirit, forest spirit god or whatever, has been trying to influence Luffy, the Pan god. You mentioned Pan earlier, and when I showed a thing from in the chat from the rough drafts or the original prototypes for the One Piece Romance Dawn or whatever, they hold a lot of the clues. Much like David Lynch's films, you have to look earlier to kind of find the codification for a lot of things. And the Pan, when we first meet Luffy, he wakes up and he screams Pan. It's actually a bird screaming or whatever. But the bubble touches his straw hat. And I think that's all a Cernunnos reference. The green man horn god, who was the fertility symbol for many ancient Irish and all Europe cultures or whatever. Cernunnos was this forest fertility god who eventually became a man. Lots of crazy stuff. But also Cernunnos ties in with Jesus Christ as well, because there's lots of alternative history stuff, but the original idea of the name of Jesus was essentially people who would come over with bags. You see all these ancient sculptures with some sort of a deity holding a bag, and this bag was, for lack of a better term, drugs to enlighten people. And this Cernunnos guy, Jesus, would go to various villages and pass out this stuff to try to get them to be enlightened. And there's all sorts of stuff with like monkey mushrooms and monkeys eating mushrooms to expand their brain and then become humans. There's all sorts of crazy ideas with that or whatever. But I think that it all might be tied into this Pan idea. Well, Pan, it means bread, but the other main definition of Pan is slave owner. And we have all of this stuff with the drums of liberation. Liberation's a very kind of funny word. Liberation means freeing your slaves. You have to own them to free them, and that's what liberation means. The proper term for what Luffy's trying to do would actually be emancipation, freeing someone from powers that slave them. Liberation almost exclusively means freeing people that you have enslaved. So I think all of this drums of liberation stuff is very very funny and crazy. And everyone was talking earlier about this horseman idea. I 100% agree. And we see all this stuff with Blackbeard being tied to hippos. Well, the word hippo originally meant horse. All of this stuff with hippo and horseman or whatever. And I heard earlier Q was mentioning Davy Jones. I think that Oda ties so much stuff into real life. Davy Jones is the original name of the late great David Bowie. And his most famous song in Japan in the 70s when Oda was born, all that stuff in the 80s, was Starman by David Bowie and, you know, the Spiders from Mars and stuff like that. And I believe that you can look through all the panels. There's this one chapter that has stars in it. There's two. When Brook is looking through a mirror, there are stars. And then when Luffy is sent on his journey by Kuma, there are stars. There are no stars in the One Piece world. As much as we see the moon, as much as we see all these nightscapes, there are no stars outside of cover pages in the One Piece story. And I think that's all kind of a reference to these stars being hidden. And all that being with Davy Jones, maybe he's locked inside of a whale, maybe there's all sorts of crazy stuff like that. And with Dak, your theories about Afro. I put an Afro in my Jolly Roger. I think we started our channels around the same time. You've exploded. I sadly have not. But this Afro idea, I think, is a huge thing. But it's not so. I mean, one is with Gaiaman being this spirit of the forest god or whatever. Mm-hmm. But Afro, we reverse it. Orpho. It means orphan in every language. And throughout the whole story, we've seen so many orphans utilized as weapons for various causes. Even Luffy himself, if we want to get technical about it, is doing all this world cleansing as an orphan through, you know, his want to come back to Shanks or whatever. Another anagram for Afro is Pharaoh. You know, Pharaoh with Egyptian and all that stuff like that, whatever, the true king. I think all of that might be very, very relevant to this stuff of choosing a king from orphans and using that orphan to kind of cleanse the world.
And just to support what he mentioned, again, the Davy Jones being possibly connected to Blackbeard and him being a hippo. Like I said, disc jockey could be refers to a horseman. Well, in Blackbeard's a hippo, right? Well, the word hippo not only used to mean horse, but I believe in Japanese, the word for hippo is something like river horse. So even in Japanese, there's a tie between horses and hippos. Like hippo,
Latin, that's the same Latin meaning too.
Yeah. So this idea that hippos can be tied to horse, there's a huge amount of horseman things going on in Blackbeard's crew. That's just something to really pay attention to and try to look into when you're trying to make theories around these guys, because I really do think there's something to it. You know, there's a cover page of Wappo, who does have ties to Blackbeard, where he makes this toy, and it's a hippo standing up and wearing a top hat. Again, a top hat. And it's just such an interesting thing of Oda to choose those things. And a lot of times they seem irrelevant, but if you really, especially if you look at cover pages, page to page, I think you'll see there are clues Oda's leaving for us to figure out and use for theory crafting.
Well, and that's something so huge. Just to piggyback off that, and I'll shut up. Kube was mentioning too this idea of there being a hidden force in the One Piece world, kind of directing things, and so this is kind of an obscure definition, but the word cloud, like clouds in the air, actually originally meant rocks. And when you look, try sometime when you're bored, read the One Piece chapters just looking at the clouds, and you will see them forming the story. They take on the shape of three different birds, a puffin, an ibis, and there's another bird I can't remember the name of right now. But these three different cloud shapes essentially shape the One Piece world. A good example is when Vegapunk is first mentioned in the story, his actual name. The cloud actually stretches underneath like a word bubble to Luffy's mouth when they're talking. And I think that all of that is kind of this lurking legend rocks guy who is behind the scenes using gravity, using will, using whatever unfree force that forces you to do things in the One Piece world all around. And the main clue, I think, is the birds in the clouds. I think, shout out to Elson, my great friend, Elson Jackington. He seems to have figured out that the ancient kingdom was called the Chi Kingdom. Ji space Chi. And one of the definitions of that can be bird wing or drumstick. And we see Luffy eating a drumstick in the chapter 100 and chapter 1000 covers. We see Garp's always eating these drumsticks. And even more than that, if you look at the very first cover spread, there is a seagull that is wearing a crown, flying next to Luffy's armpit on his right. I think all of that is this ancient Birdman kingdom. Now, what's really funny with wings is wing can also mean fin. And anything that kind of uses air or water to move around in or whatever. And this idea that it's, basically I think that the ancient kingdom is a sort of Atlantis. And whether it's a flying Atlantis or a swimming Atlantis, it is some sort of this winged being kingdom, not so much in like Skypiea, but very similar to where there are these essentially birds. Now, Chi has a bunch of different meanings with energy, like Dragon Ball Z and stuff like that. But this idea that it might be tied into a bird kingdom thing, and then as Elders was saying earlier with the Morgan's clues and all that stuff, I think all of that is very, very relevant to this final ancient kingdom.
And real quick, I just want to jump in. I'm going to let you guys keep cooking, and I have some stuff to respond to that. But I know a lot of people are saying Adam's cooking, and I love hearing Adam cook. Everyone go check out his channel. Same thing for everyone here. I just want to say, while we are here with the last arc, and we still have over an hour left of the stream. I don't want to make it seem like I'm ending it. I just realized I might be doing that. Not trying to do that. But I just want to say, yeah, we're here with the last arc, and they're awesome, and they do a lot of content on the last arc channel, but most of them are also their own creators who have their own channels as well, where you can find either extended cuts of the videos or just completely different theories or whatever. So definitely check out the last arc, but definitely go check out their individual channels as well. I mean, Adam has a bunch of videos, pretty much everyone here does. So definitely go check out all the channels there for sure. And then I also just want to say, I see
your adorable dog in the background now. Hello.
Oh yeah, I did move the camera. Yeah, that's Ralph back there. Ralph is very unhappy that he's stuck in the room right now. We were outside playing right before this, and my neighbor came out and was talking to me, and I was trying to she's really nice, but I was trying to rush her because I was like, look, I literally the stream starts in like 10 minutes. Like I gotta go, and literally what she was talking to me about, I'm not exactly. I don't, very nice lady, but she was trying to convince me that W is 2 letters. And I was, and I was like, I seriously, I love you. You are the nicest person ever, but I can't. I gotta go. So he's upset that my dog's upset that I took him away from that because he likes my neighbor too. So he's mad. But, I also want to give a big shout out to Young Usopp, who super chatted $2 30 minutes ago. So I'm sorry I'm late on that, Young Usopp. Super chatted $2. Yep, he said, let's go like the stream. Everyone definitely go check out Young Usopp as well. Big fan of Young Usopp's channel.
Great song.
Yep. And then, yeah, you know what? I'm going to get to this now just because I feel like I'm going to forget if I don't. So Saran Wrap used 100 bits way earlier in the stream. Whenever we were talking about something else and we kind of got detracted from it, so I was hoping we'd come back. But I just want to bring it up now because it's an amazing idea. Not sure if this connects, but the Noah is another broken ship, because remember how we discussed Law and Kids broken ships being symbols, like they're not, they can't be pirates now or whatever. So the Noah is another broken ship, and the Sea Kings brought it to the forest for someone to rebuild. What if that's where Kid and Laws are drowning to? And in Saran Wrap, another idea to this that I could have swore you said whenever I first read it quickly, but it's a similar idea, is in Fishman Island, right in that same place, they say that this is like where all the sunken boats go to rest. Like they all end up down at Fishman Island, like in one like junkyard, like all the ships that sink in the ocean.
Not just the boats, anything.
Yeah,
like it's like that. The idea of Davy Jones' locker it pretty much encompassed. So like that's why supposedly the what's it called, the poneglyph was there. And also, Joy Boy has tons of ties to forests and trees. Mm-hmm. And then Shirahoshi and Poseidon and her mum all tied to the forest. And so, yeah, it's a pretty massively important part.
And to hear the idea that their ships get fixed there, in my head, I'm like, oh, that's such a good idea, because maybe like their ships get fixed there, and we know Luffy has to go back to Fishman Island at some point because of the prophecy. And what if it ends up being a thing where like they go back down there? and they go get all the ships. They get the Noah, they get Kid's ship that got fixed, they get Lost Submarine back, and then they all show up like at the final war together or something. And then it's like everyone's like, you know, like Shanks and Blackbeard are like, bro, like your ships are destroyed, and Luffy's like, you know, this is the power of you know, how I get everyone to work together, kind of. You know, he doesn't say that, but that's like what Oda's telling us, is like, yeah, well, Luffy, you know, well, Luffy's better than all these people because he doesn't go destroy the ships. He gets those people to join his crew and help him, or not join the crew, but you know, to work with him. So I would love that.
He's currently
whole
at
series of events.
Egghead as well. Like the fact he's at Egghead. I mean, that it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Sunny got like a ancient tech upgrade, if that makes sense. I don't know how you word that, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
I'm
super boat.
Yeah, I'm gonna
And
say.
that's something very interesting too with that all those sorry to cut you off, Cube or whatever. But the we don't know what happened to the Oro Jackson. We don't know where that ship is. And earlier you were asking about the man marked by flames or whatever. And the last known people that we know got all 4 of the road poneglyphs were the Roger Pirates. And I think that person is Scopper Gaban. There's lots of stuff like that. Elston's got some great ideas or whatever. One of my big things is when it comes to alchemy, we think of gold being the ultimate alchemical equation. But it was actually copper. Copper is an extremely meticulous mix of elements, and to make copper, you showed a true mastery of alchemy. And I think that he might have that. Now, one of the big proofs to that or whatever is the one time that we've seen the Oro Jackson in battle against Shiki's fleet in Chapter 0, they were literally wiped out by whirlpools and storms. And I think that all of that might be a huge clue to this Oro Jackson idea and Scopper Caban having, you know, that last poneglyph. And I sent a panel right before Marineford. It's a bald dude smoking, talking about Whitebeard. And we have no idea who this dude is, but he's shown so prominently before Marineford. I wonder if that tattoo on his bald head might be some sort of a brand, like with the fishmen, like with the slave marks or whatever, and that might count as the fire thing. He's also smoking the pipe, so that might be, you know, a tie to this burning type thing or whatever. But
also, he looks identical to Gandhi Gorse. Like
he really does. And I know that we've talked before where why is the atom wood important? I do wonder if there is something with Laugh-Tail about it being inside of a whale. And this whale might have the ability to taste specific woods in its mouth. If you are not a ship made of atom wood, it crushes your ship and you die. If you are made of atom wood and all this treasure wood or whatever, it will let you go into its stomach to find Laugh-Tail. I do wonder if that's a huge possibility for what the Straw Hats and the Thousand Sunny are going for.
Or the atom wood just doesn't break on entry. You know what I mean? Like, it's the only wood that doesn't disintegrate.
It'll always be super important that Vivi went inside a whale with royalty.
Yes.
Like, her like consort in the Baroque works was a dude wearing a crown and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And them two, and she, I believe, is Emu, right? So, or like has Emu's will. So yeah, them two going into a whale, seeing it painted, like the character they meet there, stuff like that. It's just insane. Super spicy, that one.
Yep. Yeah.
So I do wonder if that's like the will of the Emu clan to live. And even in with the Noah earlier, you were mentioning the Sea Kings or whatever mentioned about how we'll need to depend on that clan to fix this thing, and we don't get a specific definition of who that clan is. But I do wonder if that's the Tom clan or whatever his family was and his brother and all the shipwrights.
So
can I hear from Cube?
Cube? Yeah, I was about to say, I know Cube been trying to get in. Cube, please, Cook.
Yeah, because it's he brought in the Edward, and it's because I forgot about the men marked by flames. So, and it's something like I've been saying this. So this idea came from Dire Regulus, who gave me that idea. He believes that ship could have been the Roger ship that just was repainted, or Weiser Gaban, and it says the only time we know a ship that came with a storm. And I'm a huge Nami fan, and it fits on the timeline with Jobo reappearing in the story in 20 years' time. The first time we ever heard of a battle where a storm appeared and then everybody was dead like that was Nami's backstory, the Okyo Kingdom, which is interesting because Okyo Kingdom is the only other island with Elbaf which is a reversal. It means Tokyo Kingdom. So yeah, that was the whole thing.
Well, tying into that exactly is we've only ever seen Scopper Caban use 2 axes, and the word axe actually means ash. So burned wood, all that stuff, I think might be a huge tie to Scopper Caban.
For me,
No, 3-day. If you're feeling it, like fire out your number of the beast theory, like because they're bringing up Nami's kingdom and stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking that maybe since Nami is from the Oikot Kingdom, that's backwards for Tokyo, then we should turn her name around for Tokyo like that too, just like Elbaf. If you do that, her name is Iman. That gave me a connection to Eam.
So Iman also in Arabic means worshiper of Allah.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
Iman is a religious name, yes. And if you look at Eam's name as in
Right.
let her keep cooking.
Vivi's name is VIVI in Roman numerals is 66. If you take Eam's name, you give the I the 1, the M is 1,000, 1 minus 1,000 is 999. So if you want to turn the world upside down like Roger, her name and number would be 666. That ties to Vivi, 66, and that ties to Nami, which is Iman.
I love that.
That's great.
I'm not gonna lie. I like.
I love that.
Like, 'cause it's just the sheer fact that Oda picked names that are Roman numerals, like that. It's hard for me to ignore because there's a lot of stuff that I'm like, okay, like that could just be a coincidence, or Oda could have done that for an ulterior reason or whatever. But like this Roman numeral stuff, like Vivi and Emu clearly have a connection, and just the fact that lines up that well, it's like almost too perfect for me, you know, like the numbers. So,
If you want to, you can also add the Roman numerals to Nami's name alone and say that I is for 1, like the first man. An Adam, which means son of the red earth. Red earth, red line, and Nami's name also means red apple. Ties into devil fruits
3 days cooking.
in the Bible perfectly.
Amazing.
Yeah, no, that because like the Adam, like the first man thing. I mean, obviously, Emu is near the Eve tree, right on top of the red line, like that.
And the red apple, like
Adam and Eve, all it ties together. I'm thinking Vivi, Eam, and Nami are all somehow tied together.
I promise I have no ties to all of these things.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love that. I guess I would be curious, 3-day or anyone else, I guess, but just what exactly would the connection be between Nami and Emu? Because like I'm definitely of the train of thought, and even that theory kind of talks about how Vivi is tied, right? Because like the Roman numeral stuff. But like I guess like what would be the connection exactly between Nami and Emu? Like not that they're related or even that the wills had to be inherited, but like maybe could it just be like maybe Emu destroyed Oikot and that's why, you know, everything was even happening, or like destroyed part of it?
Maybe the aim was after Nami in particular. I don't know.
I agree.
That would be crazy.
Yeah.
I would say go on, Coop.
Yeah, I was just and then it's very brief. I always said that it's very weird. Nami seems to be born with her gift, like so with the Straw Hat, she could have been like the first chosen one, like at the get-go, and she appears in the East Blue in a battle in which she's unscathed with Nidojiko and her, while Belmir, who was a decorated Marine officer, was heavily wounded, like they were in the eye of the storm, and then she grows up the same way Luffy does, isolated from people, exactly when Joy Boy is supposed to return to the world. Like I feel like that is very weird. Like she was destined, like to meet Luffy in a way.
And she was like the first one, or well, in the anime at least, but like she's one of the original crew members. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
And if you want to get real technical, Nami's first appearance, she lands perfectly where the Straw Hat lands by gravity right in front of her when we meet her by buggy.
And she put the hat on. She wore the hat, which Emu has a hat also.
Yeah.
Well, I think Nami is the Eye of Ra. I think that she's the embodiment of the sun god's power, Eye of Ra stuff. We've seen that with her joke hurting Luffy all the time. I know it's a power of love stuff or whatever, but lots of times the Eye of Ra is destined by, you know, being the mother of Osiris or Horus or all those things. And I think that he's kind of playing with that, as he's kind of got this crazy. The sun can see everything. It can navigate everything.
Let me spit. Basically, like, if you look at the characters individually, right? You've got Emu, who ties to essentially world government, or, you know, essentially a system. And then you've got the fact that, what was the other one I was going to say? Like, oh, that she's got ties to weather, right? Emu, we assume, has ties to weather due to flooding, changing water levels, stuff like this, right? Which we're seeing more and more of now, particularly like whirlpool, stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
So now, when you look at Nami, Nami's the complete opposite. She's a full-on pirate to the bone. No disrespect to anyone who doesn't like their parents, but yeah, she obviously doesn't have any parents or anything. She's like a total traveler. She's like through and through attached by these bonds and a dream and stuff like that. She's a proper pirate. Emu is the opposite. And then Nami also has what? Weather abilities, right? So you've got two opposites that both have weather abilities. Now, I believe, as you know, like that Vivi has that basically Emu committed the surgery on herself, and the body survived, or like a shadow survived or something, and the will gets redistributed like we see with Joy Boy and Luffy, and that will is inherited by Vivi. Now, that would mean that Luffy and Blackbeard would be the big bads, the final beef, and the beef before that would be the Nami versus Emu, rather than Luffy just bang them both out. You know what I mean? And then we see this in like cover stories, like Nami is playing cards with a dodgy dealer, like a dodgy card dealer, who is a swan, which is a royal bird, and has blue hair. And we see that the dealer is cheating, but Nami's still winning all the money. So I think like you've got this idea that like Vivi will like sort of represent the system, right? The systematic, like the nature, the machine, if you will. And then Nami will be the nature, the true will. Like she's real. Like she'll have some sort of Norse, you know, origins or something like that, because we see all this weather stuff with her. Maybe ties to Loki, blah 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 blah. So yeah, that's my take personally. I think it'll be Vivi versus Nami.
Well, I totally agree. And there's
just sorry, Adam, I'm just to have this because it goes with what Hai just said. Everything goes with that. One of the meanings of the name Nami in Japanese, because you know people all do this stuff, but it's also ocean wave, which I find it very interesting. And with wave is also another word that we talk when you talk about frequency.
And
so
you talk about
like it's very interesting.
And you talk about Emu being backwards, being Umi, which is the sea. You know. Anyways.
Yeah. Exactly.
Adam, you were gonna cook, I think.
Yeah, no, I was gonna comment on the hide stuff. I do lots of light tricks on my channel, and I look through pages with the pages behind them, and a huge moment for all that stuff is when we go inside Laboon, chapter like 100 through 103 or so, like that, whatever. And when Corcus stabs Laboon with the syringe to try to calm him down, in the page behind, it actually goes right inside of Nami's butthole. Okay? No, that's weird. Not trying to be perverted or anything like that. But right after that, she gets sick. Okay? And when she's sick, and even before that, when they hit all the Sea Kings, we almost follow the route that she creates. We try not to listen to her, and we get hit by the Sea Kings and have to go back to the reverse mountain stuff or whatever. When she gets sick, we are immediately hit by that tornado in right before, I think it's right before Drum Island or whatever, when they decide to finally get her fixed or whatever. And I really think that, like you're saying, with the Umi and the ocean wave and all that stuff or whatever, if we really look at it, the parameters of the One Piece world, like when we see that there's 4 seas and there's a Grand Line, she's the one that creates that. She literally tells us about it while spinning her finger and making a world and showing all of this stuff about how the One Piece world has to be navigated. Now, it's funny to me that she doesn't know about log pose, so I don't think that she's fully the creator. I think she is a creator, but she might not be in control of everything. But the moment that she loses control of, you know, the weather and seas, she's a weather witch now, whatever. But the moment she loses control, we get hit by huge tornadoes, and they have to go to Drum Island. And I think that all might tie into what you guys are saying about how she really is tied to this map creating. You create a map, you create a perspective of the world and a way to view it. And I think that she, just like Emu, they might have some sort of a world map power or whatever, and all of that seems to be tied to her and what she's able to navigate.
Yeah, I definitely think there's something there with, like, it's hard for me to say because, like, part of me kind of hopes that it's just Nami. It like whenever she can, like, detect weather that's coming before anyone else, I hope that's just like she has some natural pressure sensing. You know, I don't know exactly. Like, maybe her family, like, they were all, like, they lived on the sea, like, permanently maybe, or something. So, like, they just became one with, like, the ocean, like, traveling on it. Because, like, it is uncanny, like, how good she is at everything, right? Like, she, like, pretty much has it all wrapped around her finger, like, almost literally. Like, whenever anything happens, she knows exactly the moves to do. She knows it's coming before it happens. So yeah, I don't know. I'm pumped. Not whatever happens with Nami, I know is going to be, like, extremely important because, like, I mean, obviously all the Straw Hats are going to have that distinction, but it's like just the fact that she is one of the first three, like, that to me is like, you know, we obviously know what Luffy's going to do, and we have a good feeling of what Zoro's going to do, right? And so Nami's probably going to do something on a similar level to those people, but we just, even, like, because, yes, building a world map, we know she wants to do that, but, like, that, it's going to culminate into something bigger and better than just a map, I think, you know? So.
And that's also the Rogers dream that we've heard, too. The main Rogers, the Goldie Rogers dream that we've heard was circumnavigating the world and learning the history. Half of that is what Nami's dream is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Emu and Nami are two sides of the same coin, like Luffy and Blackbeard. Emu and the Celestial Dragons remade the world where they can't make a map of it. Nami wants to make a map of it.
Oh, I love the way you put that.
Oh,
two
yeah.
sides of the same coin, because I think I'll start basic first. The arc that Nami was introduced in was called Orange Town arc. It's in Orange Town, one of the most unrecognized arcs, because it's so, like, you don't really think of the arc itself. You only think of the characters. Buggy, Nami, you introduce to the characters. Nobody really cares about Orange Town. But I do believe it's relevant that that's the arc she's introduced to. And she has orange hair.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it's so trivial. But I do believe Oda deliberately picks hair colors, and it's super important. It is important that characters like Sanji, Sabo, Doflamingo have blonde hair. You know, why certain characters have pink hair, whatnot. So Nami having orange hair, I believe, is partly tied to chakra, which is tied to frequencies and all that stuff. The second chakra, in order from bottom to top, is known as the sacral chakra. This is the chakra that is located within, all the chakras are located within the body. So the first is root, it's at the base of the spine. The second is located in the sexual organs. It is known as the chakra that has the element of water, which then, you know, obviously ties to Nami with her being wave. So then once you take that into consideration, that it's sexual, I don't think it necessarily, like, there's nothing about Nami that's sexual, but this idea of orange, it could be that she in some way is meant to be the lover of someone. In which the obvious cliche answer would be Luffy, right? But I don't think it's necessarily Luffy, but the idea of what Luffy represents, which is a sun god. Now, I mentioned earlier that lions are attributed to sun, right? Somebody kidnapped Nami and even wanted to marry, and that was Absalom, this lion man. And interestingly enough, I brought up the strong lion, which relates to strong world, Shiki. Shiki also kidnapped Nami. there's this
True.
thing of like taking Nami and these characters that just have this connection, wanting Nami. And then Arlong also took Nami, and Arlong used to be part of the Sun Pirates. She has this, beef with the Sun Pirates. She even she carries it with her. She had that awkward interaction with Jinbei on Fishman Island. There's just something about the sun, people of the sun wanting Nami, and I think it has to do with representing the color orange. In Wano, Oda kept on bringing up the Oiron with Komurasaki, and even Big Mom was labeled an Oiron. So it's like, what is the idea of an Oiron? What does it mean? I do believe that there's gonna be something to a almost divine lover. In a lot of mythologies, there's what's known as a consort. Gods have consorts. It could either be a consort that is on equal footing with the gods, so someone of the equal, or even a lesser being. But if you're the consort of a divine being, you yourself are now kind of special, which then ties to why I believe it could be related to Emu, because I have my theory that Emu represents Mary. And in fact, I believe her name it would be Mary Bell, which is kind of like saying Joy Girl. And Nami just so happens to have the mom named Belmere, interestingly enough.
Yep.
So, do I think that necessarily that Emu is Mary Bell? No, not really, but I do think that Emu is Mary, which is spelled M-A-R-Y, which is the Mary referenced in Mary Joie. So, perhaps at one point, Emu was like Nami. She was this almost destined to be divine lover of a sun god, maybe in particular, Joy Boy. But perhaps she doesn't like that role. So like 3 Day said, it's like two sides of the same coin. Well, if you flip a coin upside down, now it's in a reverse order. So if you reverse the second chakra, 2 out of 7 now becomes 6, where the 6th spot is, because that's when you flip it upside down. So now the 6 out of 7 is the 2 out of 7. The 6th chakra is what's known as the third eye chakra. It is the chakra of light. It is the chakra of the mind. And interestingly enough, we've seen Sanji have lovers. And Sanji represents a ram, a sheep, just like I'm saying Joy Boy does. He also has fire, just like Luffy does. There's a lot of similarities between the two. And the two lovers of Sanji thus far just so happened to be, one was Violet, who had the power of clairvoyance and eye powers. That was basically like the third eye. And then the other was Pudding, who literally has a third eye and the power to manipulate the mind and memories of others. So, because there's almost this flipping of, it's correlating both the orange and the sacral, but also the light and the third eye to these characters. Emu, when you flip it, I think Emu right now represents more of like a third eye of the light. That's the role now embodied. But maybe at one point she was like an Umi, just like you reverse Nami's name, and was actually supposed to be an orange princess, an Oranji. Because in Japanese, that's how orange is pronounced, Oranji, which, Oda loves wordplay, so I can see him making it the Oranji. So it just means the destined consort of a sun god. And what's really interesting is that there's the king, Louis the 14th, I believe, a resident French expert.
Yeah, I'm going to, don't worry,
Yeah.
let's finish
Thank
what
you.
you say, because I'm going to jump into French stuff afterwards. Don't worry.
Yes.
Go, and then I'll jump in.
Hey,
right
okay,
away.
and real quick, I'm gonna let you guys keep cooking. I just gotta go to the bathroom, so keep cooking. If I'm not back, just interact with the chat or whatever. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
So
Okay,
it's
chat,
really
this is our
interesting.
time. Take over. Take over Dax career. I can see you. Still listening to me. It's not good.
So Louis the 14th was known as was said to be a sun god. I'm gonna put it that basically. I know Cube will come in and he'll explain it way better, but I'm just trying to mention that Louis the 14th was like some human embodiment of a sun god, and he actually had a brother, and his brother was said to be like basically the opposite of Louis in every way. Like he just wasn't imposing. He wasn't power hungry. And that's actually why Louis XIV liked his brother, because he never felt threatened by him. His brother was basically a lot like Helmeppo, just like strolling along with royalty and whatever. And he just so happened to marry someone known as the Princess of Orange. So I do think that when we find out who Joy Boy is, we're going to be very surprised to see that he's not actually like Luffy in a lot of the ways we think.
Yes.
Because if he were to be represented as sheep, well, the whole thing about sheep is that they are docile, they are gentle, they are really passive. And if he were to represent Jesus, well, then he would have to be passive, because that's the whole thing. He's not a fighter. This idea of not wanting to really hurt people, do damage to people, which would actually work perfectly with the powers of the Gum Gum fruit, because you yourself aren't taking damage. And if used at its full potential and it's all cartoony, then I could see where at its height you don't even hurt the people you're fighting. But regardless, this I just wanted to bring up, real world ideas of why it could tie to a Princess of Orange. If you want to Google up what that means, there was a place literally, the Orange, the Princess of Orange, which I think Oda could use as inspiration for this idea of a lover of a sun god. And maybe Joy Boy wasn't meant to be a sun god, but eventually became one in a weird way. But that's getting way too far off topic.
Well, no, I totally agree with you. I sent that picture in the chat or whatever of Usopp's hat, pre-time skip, that bandana he wears. If you unfold it, it has the same manga poop images as what's his name, Kuro has before the all the stuff or whatever. And when you do the light tricks or whatever, in the first chapter that Usopp's introduced, chapter 23, every single panel, he has either 3 dots or 3 exclamation points in the middle of his forehead. And I think that he's a huge clue to this three-eyed tribe thing, and I totally agree with you.
All right, I just got back.
So,
What did I miss?
Lucas. Oh no, Kube's gonna go. But after Kube,
Yeah,
I was gonna ask
yeah.
Lucas if he had any ideas on like after Kube goes, I was gonna say, yeah, have you got any ideas on the fruits that could be involved with like emu or water or sea or anything opposite to the sun? Does anything spring to your mind?
Will and gravity.
So
Yeah, I do, my man. Let Cube cook real quick, and I got you.
yeah, okay. So with what Elid said, and it's because it's very funny, Elid. And what I'm gonna say, since we talk about Davy Jones, it's gonna blow your mind. So Orange is actually was an area in the French kingdom, and which is interesting, was taken over because back then the French kingdom had their own like small villages. It was one of them that was not really included with it. It was in the north of it, which is right now the Netherlands. So basically, where the Dutch live. But what's interesting is that Louis XIV is the one who basically took it over and assimilated with the French kingdom. And during that time, Louis XIV is the Sun King. He's also the king that loved what's called freedom of speech and protected all the writers. And he was credited as 150 years later, as without him, they would not be the first encyclopedia. And so if you take with this account with the Orange, the idea of Orange is that the kings of Orange and the kings of France had the word D for the French, and for the Orange one, they had Van, which is basically from, which I think some of the ideas for the D's and for like Van Ogre could be like another form of the dawn, which I think is connected to the dusk, which the Flying Dutchman seems to connect to Davy Jones, who seem to symbolize the dusk. So I do feel like the orange aspect also comes from France, about how the kingdom of the Dutch land, the Netherlands, was created from France. Because before they were part of France, they were the north of France before it was taken. They lost it. So that's interesting, and that's all around the Louis XIV. He's the one who took it over.
Nice. All right, so to answer your question, Hyde, sorry to change the subject abruptly. When it comes to Emu, emu. A lot of people think that she has the umi no mi or sea fruit, like that she has some kind of ability to control the sea. And I heard Adam mention gravity as well. And I actually think that Emu has the Hito no mi model moon god Umi. So the moon, obviously on Earth, controls all of the seas. It controls, our gravitational pull in some way. It has a big part in our rotation and how we live in cohabitation with the sun. And I think what Emu represents is actually the eclipse of the sun god Nika. When Nika's devil fruit was lost after Joy Boy was its user, which we all assume, that's exactly what Emu did. She eclipsed the legend of the sun god and covered it up entirely.
I mean, I like that. I mean, it makes sense.
I love that. a lot.
My thoughts are that Emu is the actual sun god, but not the sun, but like artificial lights, I guess you could say. Is kind of the way I think of it. So it's like, I don't know, like kind of the opposite side. I don't know.
I always
I like
wonder,
that because it's the light. The idea of light being separated from the idea of sun metaphorically or allegorically. You're sort of taking the sun on a surface level rather than a deep level. So this that's also why I like the idea of Joy Boy being a sheep rather than a lion. Because with it being the sheep, you're really getting to the root of it, what it started off. Jesus wasn't just born a lion, he had to start out as a sheep. This idea that the Going Merry started out as a sheep, then the wheel passed on. You got to start somewhere first. You can't just jump to being the lion or being the sun, or you got to understand truly and intrinsically what it means to be the sun. Not just, oh, I can glow real brightly. That's sort of inauthentic, disingenuous, almost like a lie, which could be a huge part of what Emu does, is create a lie, an illusion.
Yep, and you look at Egghead, just 2 seconds. You look at Egghead, Vegapunk, I don't know if he's mastered it, but he's pretty dang close to making stuff out of light. Like holograms, like that. You can literally like put reality on its head by just making whatever you want out of light, and it's real or not real. Like what that debate is as old as time, right? And so and then at that point, it's like, well, all the sun is a giant light bulb, almost like a natural one. But like, it does a lot more than that. But generally speaking, that's like how it is. And it's like, well, like, then it's kind of the question of like, what's natural and unnatural? Like, is a natural thing like me using the world around me to make these lights? Is that not natural? Because I was born from this planet too. So it's like I could see the whole thing. Where like, what is life? What is real? What is natural? Like, I just love that whole storyline.
Well, what I was going to say is that to fit into the whole unnatural light and stuff, too, to make it kind of fit with my moon idea, the moon's light that we see at night is all a reflection of the sun. So it kind of also gives credence to Emu kind of reflecting Luffy in a way as well. I agree that Emu is probably the same side of the same coin as Nami, but I also kind of get the feeling that I think Nami, I was going to say this earlier, I think Nami will probably be the Straw Hat who figures out Eames, I don't want to say power or anything like that, but the way to defeat Eam. I think that's her place in the story.
Agree more.
I love that.
Totally agree more.
Yeah, I'm 100% with
and also,
that.
Dak and I have been sharing some thoughts on some of the world government symbols, and they seem to have quite a few moons in them, sort of being kept in balance. So.
Yep, literally, everyone says the Marine symbol is a seagull, which it is, but it's also literally 2 crescent moons reflected across the middle. Like that's all a seagull symbol is. Your mic sounds good.
And the world government symbol is a bird foot, a bird imprint.
Yeah, the dragon tooth.
The dragon, but that could be easily taken. Like, yes, it's supposed to be a dragon, but it's the same shape as like a bird talon, which like birds and dinosaurs and dragons, which like they're all kind of connected. I mean, they're all like structurally.
Can I just quickly, related. Just before you shoot, move on, Dak? Like, if it's cool, I'm gonna have to shoot.
Yeah, for sure.
If you're alright with that.
No, you have to stay. You have to stay, and you can't talk. No, go ahead.
I was just taking my shackles off. Damn. No, I was gonna say, if like anyone's watching, right, and they have ideas that they want to share and they don't do it already, Dak, his server, and our server, Last Ark, which probably 3 days already linked in the chat. Like, come in and just ask. Like, ask Dak himself, ask me, myself, ask anyone, and we will, like, either make your stuff into a video if you want it on there, or we can talk about it, we can build a theory, you can do art, you can do any sort of, you know, we've got D&D stream that's just started, and Dak, as I say, is like the dude that you would, if anyone's going to teach you how to do something, he's the dude to do that. So, yeah, thanks for letting us come on, and love to everyone, Teach, Harper, everyone. Ronnie, you're all legends in the chat. And thank you, Dak, for letting us come on.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure. And I echo everything you were just saying. I mean, you know what, you know, obviously I've said a bunch of times that I like helping, you know, new creators get started and all that. And the Last Ark is like the physical embodiment of that, like the physical manifestation to a degree, you know. That's like a gateway for people who don't even make videos to start making videos, or at least, you know, have some avenue to get that content out there, right? So, so yeah, if anyone here is interested in making content in any way, shape, or form, or you just have a big theory that, you know, you want to get public or whatever, definitely, you know, come talk to me in my Discord or join theirs. That's definitely the place to be. But yeah, no, Den, thank you.
Something.
Oh, do it. Go for it.
I'm just gonna say as more as well for the Last Ark, because I know people, like, you know, they might not want to write all the stuff. I'm known as in our VC, I'm the VC guy. So just talking of the VC, just, you know, you can even give 2 or 3 ideas, like we kind of exchange as well. So not just sending us, you know, by writing. We also can have a talk. So, you know, feel free.
But yeah, thank you very much, and I'll catch you all soon. Much love, Dak. Much love to the gang. Yeah, 10-8. E3 next. Let's go.
Yep. And much love. And also, right as he was leaving, Lord Vegeta super chatted $2. Said One Piece D&D. Tune in and chat. It's lit. I tuned in a little bit the other day also, or yesterday, right? I think it was yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah, but I know I was in there for a little bit, so no, it seems like a pretty cool thing. So I like that a lot. So everyone definitely check out the Last Ark. They have a lot of good stuff coming, and I'm trying to get the Discord thing fixed because
try and do that weekly.
Oh, so one every
either weekly or bi-weekly.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yep.
I like that. That's going to be pretty cool. Yeah, everyone, I definitely recommend you guys checking that out. It's a good group of people. I'm just trying to get this Discord thing fixed because I just screwed everything up. Well, there we good enough. Good enough. That, we'll leave it there. Well, I wanted it to be a different form. Whatever, it's fine. But yes, yeah, Last Ark's awesome. Definitely check them out, everyone. And also, I've been trying to get to the super chat for a little bit because. When I saw it, I didn't even know what Brandon King was talking about because that is a new thing to me. So I went and read the chapter that it was discussed in, and I think we're about to have a little cool discussion here. Brandon King super chatted $2 and said, "What about the Ox Lloyd? Where is it? Whose was it?" And I'm like, okay, I don't even know what the Ox Lloyd is. I've never even heard of it, but Brandon King says it, so it's got to be an actual question. And it's the ship that the Ox Bell was on. Like it's attached to like an old warship thing, and it's called the Ox Lloyd. Anyways, go ahead.
I'll go first because it's part of my God Valley theory, and I'm the one who found that snippet. So basically, for those who haven't seen it, with my God Valley theory, you should check it out. It's on Deadend's channel. But the Ox Bell is actually a Lloyd Bell, comes from the time of the slavery, and they were basically they called it insurance, but the insurance was when you lost slaves, so you needed new slaves. They would connect to that. So the Ox Bell, which I find it very interesting, is you have to ring 16 times, which I think is a symbolism to either like 16 families or like 16 kingdoms or something like that fell for the world government to be founded. Just in that sense.
Okay.
Yeah, but it does connect back to the 1500s with the triangle slave trade. It goes back up to there.
Okay, I like that a lot. If anyone else wants to go or not, I will go next.
No, go ahead and cook a little bit. This is a new thing to me, so.
I will say. Oh, sorry, Adam.
You're fine. Yeah. Go.
Okay, I do actually. I've thought about this before. I haven't gotten any concrete evidence or anything, but in my head, I guess I think that it's Joy Boy's bell from his ship. Like maybe his ship is the Ox Lloyd, and it's Eam's sick way of like keeping a trophy from sinking his ship. I don't know. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah,
You're good, Adam. You can cook.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, I like that too. And the name Lloyd means gray-haired and sacred. Okay, and something that's interesting is if you look at Thriller Bark. Thriller Bark has the same architecture as Mary Joa. And I think that throughout time, there has been various world-ending events that basically result in you needing to make a huge ship or an island that can survive this world flooding. And I think Thriller Bark was literally one of those iterations of this, Ragnarok type thing. And it's the maybe the most current, and then Mary Joa is the newest one or whatever. But I do wonder if that's the front of the ship that this Noah's Ark type thing. It was the front of the ship, and it was used to try to pick up people who were stranded. And they hear the bell, scream out for it, just like I can't remember his name, the guy from Skypiea. Mont Black Nolan or whatever.
Oh, yeah,
I think it might be the very same thing where they're basically lost at sea and they hear this bell, they go towards it, and they enter into this Eden's egg type thing. Mm-hmm. And I think the Lloyd's Bell might be the last remaining remnant of these old ships.
That's interesting. Like, this is such a new thing to me where every answer seems plausible. So I'm going to go on the opposite end in case it gets debunked and just say, since it is a marine thing, like it's like it's at Marineford or whatever, right? Or whatever, because Luffy had to go get back there to go ring the bell in the first place, right? So it's marine owned at the moment. So I wonder if it's the opposite, and it's like the 20 kingdoms that allied together. It was their ship, and like the bell, like we view the bell as like a good thing, which like mostly it is, mainly because of Skypiea. But it could also be the type of bell that's like, like death is coming kind of thing, which like, yeah, like they wouldn't want to like let people know, like if they're being smart about it, but like it's also like an anime. So like, yeah, I could see it because like they use it for that now, right? It says it's, I'll have to go back to the chapter. I have it right here. They said, dang it, where's it at? Like there's 16 chimes whenever they ring the bell. There's like eight for the old times that are going away, and 8 for the new times, right? Or yeah. The bell is sounded 8 times to see out the old year, and 8 times to see in the new. And so they always ring the bell 16 times. And if you go look at Emu's attack on Lelucia, there were 16 beams that came from the sky. And so whenever I see this, they ring it 16 times. I'm like, to me, that's an allegory for like they're bringing lights down 16 times. You know what I'm saying? To like erase stuff. Well, so I don't know, maybe.
And that's something. If we've seen the Game of Thrones season 8 or whatever, bells can bring bad things or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I do think it might all be tied into the Marines, like Doflamingo said during Marineford. Maybe the original pirate crew became the Marines, and this world, navigating, controlling force. And this bell idea, I think that, I didn't get really meta with, we're eating food in America that is bad and is poisonous and kills us, just shorter than every other country or whatever like that. And, you ring the bell for dinner time. I think that could be one possibility to where they've controlled so much. They're actually controlling the food and intake we get, and it slowly deteriorates us and makes us weaker. I think it's a huge possibility. I do wonder, though, if Emu himself, whatever, is part of this old Joy Boy crew, and they took over the world like Luffy might, and they're the new ruling force, and eventually that becomes the Marines and world government.
I love that, and like my brain is exploding with ideas now because... So Killer also says the sounding of the 16 chimes can be interpreted as a tribute to the ending of one age and the beginning of a new. And so we're talking about just the world government and just all this kind of stuff, like maybe even going back to Joy Boy, all that. Well, the ship's obviously old, so I think it being around in Void Century time is 100% on the table. Not confirmed, but on the table. And I'm looking at it like, what if that was the world government ship back in the day, but it wasn't used even as like a like a harbinger of death or anything, but it's like a like after they beat Joy Boy and you know, like, because they said that once the Void Century ended, all of the 20 kings, or well 19 of them, named new people to take over their old countries. Like the Don Quixotes picked the Riku family, right?
Mhm.
And this ship that was ringing the bell, like this talking about a new age. What if it was literally just like a thing to go around after the Void Century and be like, hey, we're the new world government. We just defeated a big evil and saved everyone. We're going to give you a new king. You know, like basically like that. It was just their communication, like, because they rang the bell to let the island know, hey, we're coming. And it may be viewed as a good thing, kind of like what you're saying, Adam, with like dinner time, just as an example. And it can be viewed like, oh, cool, the people are coming to help us. Like, yeah, like we're saved, you know, all that. But actually, it's the evil people that have come to like cement their role as the leaders, right? So,
Yes,
I love that.
Think about this, though,
and also
because
the same
Luffy
thing-
constantly says.
Let's cook and then
constantly
Adam.
harps that he's not the hero.
Yeah.
Right? He constantly says, I'm not a hero. He does good things, but he emphasizes, I'm not a hero.
Right.
And it's funny because his grandfather is known as the hero of the Marines. But Garp himself doesn't seem to even want to embrace that. And these are guys that seem very neutral. They're not so much like they're trying to put themselves on a pedestal, like, I'm the great person, I'm this, I'm that, I'm your savior. Because in doing that, it could create a clouded judgment. You can create a bias for yourself. That if you feel you're in the right and you're righteous and you're good, what you do in your way is the right way. So if anybody opposes that, they must be bad. But that may not be reality. That just may be their own personal truth. So maybe at one point, we think of the world government as this evil entity, but maybe at one point they really were the saviors. Maybe at one point they really did actually save the day, and there was a previous bad guys. And
Yes.
you bring up Doflamingo and the Don Quixote family. Well, the attack he used, the very last attack he used against Luffy, was called God Threads, Divine Execution, in which he created 16 holy assassin bullets. And it was used against Luffy, and he counted it with King Kong gun. And interestingly enough, the former leader of the whole Marines was Kong. And now he's even a higher position. And Adam says something I really like. Maybe at one point the Marines could have even been pirates.
Yep.
They could have been a pirate crew. Well, I have the theory that Morgans is a Gorosei, and he has a high up position in the world government. He represents something in the world government. I believe each Gorosei probably rule over a certain faction of the world government. And I think Morgans is tied to the Marines. Sorry, what?
I was just saying that video you have about Morgans and the Japanese translation is absolutely freaking amazing.
Yeah, it's all about etymology. The World Economic News is WE News, World Economic. And if you know about the way Norse and like Scandinavian, the way they pronounce W is actually V. So WE News is Venus, but it could also be Venus. And then his name is Big News. And in Spanish, they use B instead of V. So for them, it wouldn't be Venus, it'd be Venus, which Big News sounds like Venus in Japanese because the way they pronounce the words. So that's pretty much the quick rundown of why I think Morgans is tied to Venus. Well, Venus is the morning star, which is also a title shared by Lucifer. And we know that the world government is so like anybody that opposes them, they're the devil. And we know we attribute like the will of D, people who are the will of D are often seen as devilish. Roger would be like, you'll make a devil out of me. Jaguar D Saul would say that. And now Nico, she's not a D, but she's definitely anti-world government, and she can literally turn into a devil. So there's a lot of this demon ideology tied to opposing the world government. In fact, part of my theory is not just that if Joy Boy is a sheep mink, he represents Jesus, but also Baphomet, which is a pagan horned deity that a lot of Christianity views as the devil. Even though technically Baphomet is not meant to be the devil, they view, hey, that's other, that is bad, that's devilish. So with one of the Gorosei being named Saturn, that's a Roman god, right? But what if it doesn't necessarily mean they are entirely representing Roman gods, but Rome in general? So they could represent Roman Catholicism. So by representing Roman Catholicism, you could see why they could see themselves as good and righteous, and even if they do bad things, it's still good, because there was the whole, crusades throughout history, where under the name of Christianity, you could do whatever you want, but as long as it was in the name of God, whatever they view as God, they're in the right. So this idea that they could have been a crew. So Morgens also means morning in German. Morning star. So there's the character in the World Economic News known as Sora, Warrior of the Sky. So what if Warrior of the Sky, Sora, represents something that is relevant to Morgens? Well, Sora has a pet seagull. He is represented as the Marines, which is represented as a seagull, the seafaring bird. And what does Morgan command? Seagulls. So what if Morgan really is Sora? What if Morgan either is Sora or wants to be Sora, or wants to create a Sora for the world? What if Sora represented something in the past that opposed the world government? And with it being on Marineford, it makes sense how at some point this ship could have been a pirate crew meant for the Marines before they got assimilated into the world government.
And I love that you brought up Morgan's like making a Sora, because it's not 100% relevant to everything else you were saying, but just if I had to put my money on it, if Morgan's was going to try to recreate that, it's going to be Usopp. You know what I mean? Like he's going to be, because Sora is from like a story, right? So that's why I'm like, it just, Usopp lies about everything, or like everything about him is a lie. So I could see he's like the perfect scapegoat, I guess, for creating that kind of, because he's also already got Usopp. He always gets overplayed, you know what I mean? And Sora's like viewed as like a perfect person kind of thing. So like not the real Sora, like
someone else,
Sanji's mom, but you know what I mean? Well, she is also perfect, but
yeah. That could be relevant, Sanji's mom, because the whole being Vinsmoke and the thing. Another person that could have been potentially trying to be made into this Sora or this potential sun god figure is Shiki, which I know he's a movie character, whatever, but he is canon, 1, and 2, his epithet is the flying pirate. The Sora means flying. So in Japanese, is in his epithet, just like, well, it's the reverse, where Sora is the warrior of the sea. Shiki is a pirate, but he's also known as the flying pirate in Pirates of Seafaring. So that's in there. And his other epithet is Golden Lion, which is interesting because he then has the same trend as admirals, because admirals are color animal. So he just weirdly enough has that thing that admirals also have. So in a weird way, maybe there was something there where he may have been groomed to be something, which would kind of come in line with Igarashi looking like Stussy, who we know is like artificially created. We don't know how she got into CP0, but somehow she did. And then the other person is Shiki. So don't sleep on Shiki. I really do think Oda's setting up something.
Yeah. Oh, he's definitely going to be relevant. Just real quick.
It's forgotten.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, I'm going to bring up a super chat that ties back to Morgan. So you go ahead. Go ahead and say your piece.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So basically, and it's because we were talking about the bells, and the whole thing is that, and because I'm working on part 2, but every island that I know have hypnosis or influence of hypnosis, there's one thing in common. There's a golden bell or a bell on that island in the flashback, regardless, which is very interesting. So the idea of you're saying that, 8, like, the idea of like it was one empire that fell for another one to rise, your idea on it, I think it could be more like the narrative changed, like people are not aware of it, like the announcer we talked like over an hour ago. Like I think there is something like close to that, like bells is supposed to represent something from the past that they can remove.
Well, bells. So bells. The main thing I think we all think of, if you ever lived in a small town, is church bells, and we can look at a lot of history where churches take over the pagan domination of cultures, and they replace that with a church. instead of worshiping the forest and all that stuff and housing, they turned the worship place to a church and the bells and stuff like that. I think that's all a clue with that Lloyd bell, is taking those church bells to the natural environmental worship that pagans had, to making it a purely church-based, Christ-based, whatever. And something that Elders was saying, whatever, with the Bink stuff. There's a SBS, I think, in volume 55 or something like that, where Oda actually talks about how in Japanese, Binks would be pronounced Vinks with a V, and Vinks means bird hunter. It's a family name tying back into the ancient kingdom being a bird wing kingdom, whatever, all that stuff, whatever. But Binks being Vinks, it means bird hunter, and these people that hunt birds and wingmen or whatever. And I think that could be, extended to angels, hunting angels, all that stuff or whatever, trying to replace God on earth with a manly power or whatever, a man-created power or whatever. But I really like the idea that Elders was saying or whatever with the Bink stuff.
I actually just thought of an interesting connection, because the person who winks a lot is Ivankov.
Yeah, and they say V. They
happens to.
They use V.
Sorry,
right?
what?
They use V, like
yeah,
instead of in the way that they say things, it's always a V sound. Yeah, it's always like a V sound.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier someone mentioning that a W was 2 letters, and it really is. It's a U and A.
Man, that was that's one of those things you hear, and I don't even know how to really respond. You know what I mean? I'm like, man, that is.
And that's the thing. I think Oda really is playing kind of a Dragon Ball Z type fusion of languages, and one of those things is W. It does look like a marine bird flying or whatever, a upside down M, but it also is a U and an A. And even those, when we go back the furthest that we can, they are not the first letters. The first letter ever is a weird A shape, and it means wow. And it's if you saw something majestic, if you saw a shooting star in the sky as a prehistoric human, the first utterance out of your mouth would be, "Oh wow," and that's the first letter. It's a weird A and Y combined, and it's where Yewao comes from, which is Jesus' original name. And I think all that stuff is very prevalent to this. We get Luffy with the voice of all things and all that stuff or whatever. I truly think that all might be a connection to this eternal language we have, where no matter what language you speak, you see something spectacular and you think, wow. And that's where Yewao comes from. Jesus, the name of Jesus, all that stuff.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because something that connects to that I brought up whenever I first read this chapter, which was years ago now, and I've always heard it pronounced Yahweh. I think that's the word you're saying, but that's how I've heard it, but yeah, it's the same thing, but Old Testament name for Jesus essentially is what it is, right? And I always thought Yasuye in One Piece was very evidently tied to that, because he is very evidently a Jesus character. He was very selfless, went around, gave away all of his stuff, was smiling all the time, acted like nothing was wrong when everything was wrong. He was literally executed on a cross. He literally died on a cross, and he also has an afro, which I've already taught. Elids and I have broken down every Afro Jesus connection there is. So,
there's more.
There are more. If you go check his video.
Yeah, in fact, that brings it back to Ivankov. First of all, Ivankov has an afro.
Yep.
And
what is the nickname for Luffy?
But the Ivankov being a sort of transsexual, whatever, in many ancient cultures, the main representation of a pure, perfect being was representing both genders. So Ivankov having both male and female features, and of course the Rocky Horror Picture Show, Dr. Frankenfurter stuff or whatever. But that idea was in literally every ancient culture pre BC 1, pre Jesus and Egyptian ideologies, was the perfect being, was a member, a person that had both male and female features.
Oh, I could get so deep right now, but it's so I won't commit to it because it's too controversial. First, I want to finish the nickname that Ivankov gave Luffy is Mugiwara Boy, and in hindsight, that's all the more relevant knowing Joy Boy. So it's just a weird coincidence that I'm sure is not a coincidence that was the name given. But the idea of being it's not even so much transsexual. What it is masculine and feminine are two sides of the same coin, and that it's not meant to be a separation. But it's not meant to, in fact, just look at my logo. That's what it represents. What my logo has is what it represents. It's supposed to encapsulate all. So to have divine and masculine is not separated by the physical DNA that we have, but rather it's much more deeper on a spiritual level where one person can have both, can embody both divine masculine and divine feminine. And I think divine masculine feminine is going to be represented in One Piece through Emu and the idea of a sun god, Joy Boy. So I'm going to cut it off because I'll get too deep, but I'll say this. You might think there might not be something to this, but think about one of the core symbols of One Piece, and that is an anchor. In fact, that's one of Luffy's nickname. It's in the very first chapter. And an anchor is the feminine symbol, which at the bottom is two-ended phallic symbol.
Yes.
It's interesting.
I mean, all this stuff is wrong with the penis envy stuff. It is all becoming one.
Elids, you should make a video on that, or have you already?
I do want to make it one day. I just know it's gonna be. I'm gonna definitely it's gonna be very divisive. There's a lot of people that don't really want to think that One Piece could consider this, but
best videos are because they can't handle the truth.
If you express it as a controversial thing up front, set the stage with like, all right, guy, I know, then usually they're a little more receptive in my experience. But like, whenever you act like it's 100% true, then people are a little bit like, okay, like I don't know, but I think like that idea is like entertaining. It's something a lot of people would chew on. Even if it is controversial. So I think that's like, yes, but as long as you tell them it's controversial and just like try to be fair about it, I think it'll go over well because it is interesting, right?
And it's the same thing represented in the Trimurta with the Brahma, Vashna, and the I can't remember the other one, but it's the same exact thing where all aspects of humanity are combined into one.
Real quick, I just want to say we are at 2:43. I'm hoping to end the stream in about 20 minutes, so I'm gonna start. Obviously, as I said, we have 20 more minutes, but I do want to start wrapping towards the end, and so I want to get through this last super chat and ask you guys a couple other questions that I always ask or I try to always ask at the end of the streams. So first off, I just want to get to this last super chat. From Ida E. And if anyone else has more super chats, now is the time. If not, I mean, I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat, but we've been cooking, so I haven't been able to reply to a lot of you guys in the chat who've been saying a lot of really good stuff. But
really great.
Ida E super chatted 249 euros and said Morgans equals Uranus. What does everyone else think before I go? Any immediate reactions to that?
I mean, if it's set with the sky at all, yes, 100%.
Yeah, I could see it. I could see why that would be a thing, since Uranus is the god of the sky. If it wouldn't be Venus, then Uranus would be my second guess. So yeah, that That makes sense.
Yeah, I like it. I would say like it would definitely be he would be like the one who controls it. You know what I'm saying? Like Uranus would be like like he'd be Poseidon. You know what I'm saying? How like Shirahoshi controls the Sea Kings. Because like I don't think like if Morgan's equal Uranus, like he's not strong enough to be an ancient weapon himself. Like there'd have to be another, which I do think that's how all the ancient weapons are set up. But I guess that would be my call out for that. But at the same time, I would say that Morgan's already has such a massive role that it would be almost a little weird for Oda to give him even more stuff on his plate. That'd be like maybe my biggest issue with it is like he's obviously going to be important for the rest of the series because I mentioned it earlier, but he's the liaison to the people of the world about what's happening. Like they believe him. Like he speaks gospel to them, right? Like no matter what he says, they take it as truth. So for him to also be Uranus would be a lot, but I mean, he obviously is a bird. He has a flying ship already. You know, I could see it, and he has connections to the government and stuff. And it's like, why does he? Like, what does he have on them that? Like, why don't they just kill Morgans and make their own paper, right? Like, that's kind of the question. So, so I don't know. I can see it's an interesting idea. The thing for me, like I said earlier, I'm cooking up a Morgan's videos now. Whatever Morgan's does is going to be big time. That's all I got to say. He is just yep. Like we said it earlier, Gats from Dressrosa, that is the baby version of what Morgan's will be at the end, is what I see. At a minimum, maybe even more, because I mean he's been around since the start, even if we haven't known him. Because the papers have been around, the bounties. So even though we haven't known him, he's had a role since literally chapter 3 or whatever. Whenever we first got a paper, because like Luffy got a bounty. Whatever it was, chapter 10. I don't know what it was. Whatever it was.
Like 97, 96, something like that.
Because he got an initial one, and then I can't remember because like early on they knew, like I can't remember exactly, but we saw something in the paper really early. I'll put it that way. I just don't remember what it was because I knew it was established that it existed early on. But okay, what I want to get into real quick, I try to ask this every stream to everyone I have. Because obviously we're in the final saga. Oda's cooking. We only have so many more weeks or whatever time frame to talk about One Piece before all these answers are given to us. And maybe not every answer, but you know, before we learn the things that mostly what we talked about today. So what I want to hear from each of you guys, and we'll go down the list. So we'll start with Adam, is what are you most excited for? And this can be like, what reveal do you want to hear? Or just what event do you want to see? Or what about the community? Just in general, when it comes to One Piece, what are you most looking forward to as we, are winding down the story? So Adam first.
Okay. So, I personally think that, lots of the, One Piece stuff goes in, clues that result in other clues. And, I think that the first chapter of next year will be chapter 1111. And I think that all the 4 ones or whatever, equaling a box, will be when we find out what the One Piece is. And I think it's a trap. I think it's a big thing to kind of trap whatever person who's nearest of taking over Emu gets trapped in whatever. But I am looking forward to whatever this egghead incident is. I think I think we're going back to their next chapter. I think that will be fun. But I think that finding out what the One Piece laugh tale that Roger found in chapter 1111 is the biggest thing I'm looking forward to.
I like that. Now that you brought up 1111, I'm excited because Zoro also has 1111 vibes, right? Like his birthday's 1111, I think,
yep.
and his bounties like 11111, whatever, right? I think so.
I do truly think that it will be when Zoro is unlocked or awakened or unleashed or whatever. I think that all that stuff will be happening.
I love that. That's dope. And then, Eliz, I'm going to have you go next, but I just want to give just real quick, just a shout out to some of the chatters that I've seen here all day, because they've been spitting fire, and I'm like, oh, I got to mention that, but then we drift so far from the topic that I don't get to bring it up. So I just want to give a shout out, like Nasty Ninja, Friend Harper, Vex is the Lurking Legend, who's the real Lurking Legend, because he's lurking now, but it's only a matter of time before he's making his own content, so definitely, keep tabs on him. Lubu Kill You, Will of Dreams, Good Vibrations, who's been a member since like literally day one. Big shout out to you. Terrible TJ, same thing. the Blackman who laughs. They crack me up every time, but I saw a bunch of good chats from you that I wanted to bring up throughout this whole thing. So big shout out to you. I'm sorry I didn't get to say any of them, but we were just cooking. And I guess I'll say this real quick. The Blackman who laughs said Luffy represents the divine masculine and Bonnie represents the divine feminine. Bonnie's the part I really want to focus on, because I think Bonnie's going to be super important. But Tainted Marth, shout out to you also. Young Usopp, big shout out to you. Now that's really all I can see. But big shout out to everyone that was here today. That's mainly it. You guys have been awesome. But then Elids, what are you most excited for as we are finishing up the story of One Piece?
I'm looking forward to see how Oda ties back together Kid, Luffy, and Law, because he had them go to 3 different locations that were all in kind of the proximity from it was almost like a choose your own adventure game. It was weirdly like, it wasn't random. It was like they were all just 3 sort of one after the other next to each other, and it just seems almost built up to be like they're gonna separate in 3, but watch them come back together on the other side, or something of that nature. And I do believe he's masterfully everything he's setting up all around the world is going to culminate, not just because all these people are going to meet together, but I do think there are certain things that are happening on Egghead that are going to be relevant on Elbaf, because I think we're all kind of on the same page. We think the Straw Hats are going to Elbaf, and I believe it's centered around the Iron Giant. Well, the big giant, Ancient Kingdom Giant, I hear a lot of people call it the Ancient Kingdom Giant. Well, it actually does have a title, and that's the Tetsu no Kyojin, which means Iron Giant, which is probably a reference to the movie Iron Giant.
Yeah, great movie.
But yeah, so that's the actual name of it. It's Iron Giant. And I truly believe that's going to have to play a big role in understanding what makes the Giants so special. I think that they're going to have a special form of armament hockey that takes it to where not only are they tough as metal, but they literally manifest metal. Like, they manifest their own armor, in a sense. And
I love that.
We're going to see how this also plays a role in making ships, and this idea of what is a ship and what is a person, which is very prevalent in Frankie, because he considers himself a BF. His body, his robotic body, is a BF model. And battle Frankies are ships, so it's in a way, it's like he considers himself a ship. And his title is the Iron Pirate or something like that, which only became relevant pretty recently, like in Dressrosa. Before he was called Cyborg Frankie.
Right.
He even had another epithet, Fire Breathe. But then recently, Oda decided to give him Tetsu, which means iron. And I believe this is all going to show what is special about Kid, why he went to Elbaf, and the type of sun god he is. Which is when now I'm going to plug. At 3 p.m., my video is going to upload a Sun God Kid. And why I think he has a fruit that is representative of the Roman god Victoria, which is the Roman equivalent of Nika. And it gets crazy. The amount of evidence I have is a little out there. But I'm actually pretty good at predicting this type of stuff, because before anybody, I didn't see anybody saying Luffy was going to use a sun-based form to defeat Kaido. And I said, I think he's going to do it. And I showed a bunch of evidence, and I showed Sun Wukong and the solar plexus and the idea of what a sun means. And then eventually we get Gear 5th. So when it comes to that stuff like that, I use my understanding of hockey and whatnot, and the root, the earth, and the giants, I think, are really tied to one another. And so yeah, be on the lookout for that. And that's pretty much what I'm looking forward to, how he ties all this stuff together.
No, I like that, and I especially like the part you talked about hockey from Elbaf, because obviously Kid's going to be stuck on Elbaf for a while, and Kid, of all people, needs to learn hockey the most. And wouldn't it be fitting for him to not learn hockey this whole time, and then the best possible teacher ever for armament hockey is the one who shows him, and then that could even be the conduit for which Luffy learns this new kind of armament hockey, right? Like, Kid learns it from Loki, just as an example, because I always plug the Loki theory, but like, maybe Loki helps him out and teaches him, because Dory and Broggy have been doing this for a long time, like this crazy hockey stuff, right? And so maybe he teaches him, and then Luffy shows up and Kid hits him with this like new level of hockey, and Luffy's like, what what is that? Like, it's like I have never felt something like that. Like, what? That would just be it would just bring the kid stock skyrocketing, which he desperately needs, like really bad. And so yeah, everyone definitely be on the lookout for Elid's video about Kid, because Kid's gonna come back. I just don't know when. So definitely get the theories out while you can. Also, we're gonna move on to Kube's what he's most excited for. But real quick, just another quick shout out, just because I think I forgot a couple of people. First off, Ronnie, the king of Nakama here, always plugging everything and just being awesome. I just saw a bunch more chats from you since the last time I talked. So big shout out, Ronnie. And I don't know if I said Tiante Black earlier, but I think I've seen your name like all day. So big shout out to you as well. Jankmaster, I've seen you too. So big shout out to everyone here. But then, Kube, what are you most excited for the end of One Piece?
Oh, well, first of all, I'm very excited for the Hashinosu thing, because I do think it's going to pivot to the God Valley incident, in which I'm trying to put myself as an expert, and how many hours and months I've put myself into that. But what I'm also very curious, and I will even say that I believe that they're all from the Void Century, and I just want to see that Void Century flashback, because my brain is just telling me that's the only thing that makes sense in the One Piece world. They're all from that time, and they just can't remember. So honestly, the end of One Piece, I'm excited, but I'm actually very excited of the Void Century, because I think that's the reason why there's parallels, two sides of the same coins. Like, something happened in which, there's a weird spiral or what's called, I don't want to say simulation, but there's a cycle for some reason that keeps repeating itself. And that's what I'm very focused on, because like, the One Piece is cool, the final war, but the Void Century is driving me crazy. It's really driving me crazy.
It's the reason it's the reason we care about everything we care about in One Piece. If the Void Century wasn't there,
exactly,
would we be looking for the One Piece? Would we be caring what the Marines are doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, none of that probably happens if that Void Century isn't there. Which is maybe a story for the government to consider, where, hey, maybe you shouldn't go hide 100 years of history and kill everyone that looks for it, because it's just going to be the perennial elephant in the room. You know what I mean? Like, every person is going to be like, all right, man, what's going on? So I'm going to
say this to everybody who's doubting this idea, and I get people who are saying, I don't think so. And if anybody could explain me this logic, is Nolan and Cricket are 400 years apart. They look similar to the point that their hairstyle, which is not about family-wise, it's about a timeline, same culture. You grew up around the same time. Hairstyle is all about the time where you live, your environment. Why, from 400 years apart, they're still similar, and they have so much the way they dress, their hairstyle does not make sense unless they're from the same timeline, 4 generations in one timeline. Like, for me, it does not make sense. 400 years apart, they look so similar. It's not possible. It's just very weird.
No, I like that. And also, and I'm dying to know how this ties in, is Usopp is also related to them somehow, because he said it, right? He said, I'm related, which is, if Usopp says it, it's just fact. That's just how One Piece works. So that's something I'm waiting for, because I know it's a fact to me that they're related, but like, what does that mean for like these cycles? You know what I mean? Because for me, Noland is I would consider him like a Pirate King level person. Maybe I'm overreaching, but I don't think there's any doubt. He's also 400 years ago. He saved the Tontadas like Luffy did. He saved the Skypians like Luffy did. The only reason he died is because he basically gave himself up. Like, he could have fought out of, like, he could have, probably escaped the country if he wanted whenever they said they were going to kill him. But he's like, too honorable of a guy. Like, he didn't want to do that, I'm assuming, because he's for sure stronger than the king and everyone else there. So I want to know how that ties together, because Usopp definitely has some Joy Boy, vibes as well. So,
and the botany thing, he was a botanist. Usopp with his pop greens. It's like, there's so much stuff between them. It's weird.
Yes,
I agree.
Yes, exactly. The botany, and that I have a Nolan video that I've been slowly cooking. It's like I've been dry aging it. I've been cooking it sous vide for a couple months now. It'll be ready eventually, but once I get that Nolan video out, I'm going to be echoing a lot of the things you're saying right here, like the botany ties. And I mean, Nolan is one of Oda's best characters. I don't care what anyone says. But Straw Hat Lucas, let's hear what you're most excited for.
Obviously, I'm excited for all the mysteries to be solved. I'm ready to learn about the Void Sentry, enjoy Void everything. But the two things I'm most excited for right now are the incident on Egghead and Elbaf. Because I think the incident on Egghead, I'm not going to go too deep in it because small plug. I'm going to have a TikTok about it later, very long one. That the incident will be the death of Jay Garcia Saturn. And I think it will lead to the first battle of the final war on Elbaf. Something in my gut tells me that Blackbeard's first move is going to be to go after Shanks. He's going to go to Elbaf. Shanks isn't there anymore, but Luffy's there now. Boom. Battle time. I don't know. I'm very excited, though, to see what Oda's cooking up. He has just been going so hard lately. It's getting harder and harder for me to even try to theorize on what exactly is going to happen. Yeah,
the immediate theories, like trying to guess like what's happening in the next couple chapters, or like the traitor on Egghead, for example, like things like that are kind of like micro theories, you know. It's impossible. It's impossible to do them anymore. I literally did a video, and all I mentioned, I mentioned a lot of stuff, but like one part of it was like, I think Aokiji is going to go over to Egghead. Nope. Like that's already wrong. So like, it's so hard to make theories right now. Like at least like those kind of theories, like the immediate ones.
Exactly. So. It really is. Looking into the future, yeah, easy. But trying to guess what's going to happen in the next two chapters, no.
Exactly. It's impossible, man. But your thought on Saturn dying, I'm in a similar train of thought. I think he's going to get punched at least by Luffy. So it's like a Sabaody redo. So like he'll get hit and it'll be like, okay, well, the world's on DEFCON 5. Like, you know, we can't, like, Gorosei got hit. That's like, you know, they all have to die immediately. So I like that. Him dying is also on the table, but I hope they're strong. That's my biggest issue. Like, I wouldn't want them to die too quick, but it's possible.
My thought with it is that something will happen. I think he is the man marked by flames. I will say that.
Okay.
I think that reveal will happen, and somebody won't like what they hear and take him out, kind of thing. And then the Straw Hats will be blamed for it.
I could see that. Yeah, there's a lot of ways it could go, because we also have to consider like Vegapunk. You know, Vegapunk has almost been like put in a box a little bit throughout all of Egghead. Like, he doesn't seem that impressive, like strength-wise or anything. Obviously not bodily strength, but he's really smart. And I would like a thing where, like, he like Vegapunk is the one who kills Saturn because he, you know, is smart enough to. Like, that's basically the idea. Like, I don't know what it would be, but put some respect on Vegapunk.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, because like, because Luffy obviously will have some altercation with him, but killing him, it would just be cool if Vegapunk's like, yeah, I'm the only one who knows what you really are. You know, like, he is able to, like, I don't know how it would work, but he, like, knows the secret. So I think that would be pretty cool. It would also be, like, a little story for, like, the crew, just to be like, oh, okay, so the Gorosei aren't normal people. They're, like, this thing, you know, like a robot or a dinosaur. I don't know. I'm just random. I don't know. But something. Space monster.
Space monster. I like that. I like that a lot.
I mean, well, and Vegapunk has space monsters in his lab, so, you know.
Maybe he's tied to the moon people, too.
Yep, yes, exactly. Yes, the space pirate logo is a big head. You know what I mean? Like Vegapunk.
Exactly.
So, yeah, no, great answer. And lastly, 3-Day. What are you most looking forward to towards the end of One Piece here?
I'm with everybody else. I'm looking forward to the flashback of the Void Century and the reveal of the name of the ancient kingdom, which I still think it could be the Nika Kingdom, named after Luffy's devil fruit, sun god.
I like that.
And I really want to see the ancient weapons, of course, and I still think that Nami is going to be able to control Uranus. It's going to be related to the egg on Roger's ship and whether Egghead, and Saturn gets close to Nami, maybe she'll awaken her Uranus powers.
And I mean, we're on Egghead Island, and you know, the egg on Roger's ship, like, that's an egg, and also Vegapunk
shows the weather eggs.
Yep, and Vegapunk's technology, like, pretty much, like, we were pretty much introduced with this idea being planted in our minds where Vegapunk wants to control the weather, right? He wants to be able to change it from cold to warm if he wants to. So
That's Nami's forte.
yep, which I guess that's more climate, but whatever. In One Piece, it's the same thing. Like my college education's like screaming at me like, Dak, weather and climate are not the same. But in this context, they are the same. So yeah, I agree. I think it's all this egghead and then weather changing stuff. It's gotta be important in some way.
He could also add to her climate attack baton
Ooh.
his inventions. Instead of just thinking about Frankie on that idea, think about Nami, Uranus, her ability to control weather. He wants to control it.
And you
So
know,
he
and
could add that.
that's making me wonder too. Usopp is the one who made the climate act, and we were just talking about, Usopp.
He said he's Vegapunk.
Yeah, he said he's Vegapunk, and we just said he's related to Nolan. Like, what if Usopp is just like a conglomeration of every like important lineage? Like somehow there's like one common denominator from all like the most important people in One Piece, like throughout all of history. Like all those lineages have like one common denominator, and it's Usopp. That would just be like
So crazy.
I would love that. That just seems like something it would do. Like, Usopp, you're the ancestor of, and there's like 500 great people in history. Like he's somehow related to all of them just throughout, the way everything connects. That seems like something they would do. So, but no, good answers.
I wanna.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I wanna plug. I wish I knew the name. There's this creator. He made this theory. Oh, I can't find him. About a Nico fruit, where it's like kind of like the Nika fruit. Sorry, the model Nika fruit, but it's about smiling, and it's something that Nami would have. Mr. Bushido put me onto him. His name is Cliff Ford, CLIF Ford, as in the car brand, FORD, and yeah, go check out it only has 137 views. It should get more. He brings up a lot of interesting points. One of them being like, Nico could just be the female equivalent of Nika, which really Nika being the Greek goddess is the derivative of Nike. So for there to be another derivative wouldn't be that far-fetched. And I brought up earlier the idea of consorts and how consorts are sort of in relation to the god. And if you think about it, we would think that Luffy's devil fruit has some kind of ties to the Monkey King and, Sun Wukong and Balrog. Well, Nami has the baton, and it can grow like the power pole. Right. And then it also involves the cloud, like the flying Nimbus. So that's just an interesting coincidence there. Like maybe there's something Oda's building up there with this, that's two things right there for Nami that is reminiscent of the Sun Wukong.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go check that out. You said it's Clifford? That's my dog's name, so I've been mesmerized at that. But Clifford, I'm definitely gonna have to go check that out.
It's two. It's
Cliff Ford,
CLIF and then Ford. Yeah.
Okay. Cliff Ford, but like, yeah. So just a space.
He said the Nico, Niko, Niko, and it's because Nika is like a sound effect for smile, but so is Nico.
Mm-hmm.
No, he brings up so many great points.
Like that.
Especially the best one is that that was a huge theme between Luffy and Nami, is that he didn't want to see her cry. He wanted to only see her smile.
That's true.
So,
and
again, it's a great I can't think of the word. It's a great theory.
And that even ties back to what I mentioned earlier, where Nami asks Luffy for help. Luffy gives her the hat, and then he goes and helps. And that could even be a Joy Boy Emu thing. Like, what if Emu asked Joy Boy for help? Joy Boy gave Emu his hat, and then he went and sacrificed himself to save the world or something. And who knows where this is all going? So I like that. I'm gonna have to check out that video for sure. But all right, everyone. Well, this is the end of Davy Dak Fight Round 10. So thank everyone for being here. Thank you for the super chats and just the general involvement in the chat. Like I said, I saw you guys spitting tons of great ideas, but we were just cooking a lot, so I didn't get to bring a lot of them up. But thank you guys so much, and thank everyone here that came and joined the stream today from the last arc. Appreciate all you guys. everyone in the chat, please, if you have not already, go check out The Last Ark, subscribe, check out their individual channels, because you know, I said it earlier, but you know, you might get extended cuts or just totally different videos on their home channel, but The Last Ark is kind of the hub for, you know, a lot of the main ideas that they're all cooking. So it's kind of like you can get a little bit of both. So definitely check out all the channels. And Ronnie, I saw you said, what's next? What's the move? If you mean for the streams or the channel, I don't know yet. So, but we need to definitely do another VC, Ronnie. I know Kube was here, 3-Day was there too, Den was there too. We had a really long VC not too long ago, so check out Ronnie's Discord, and my Discord, and the Last Ark Discord. A lot of Discords these days. But yeah, we were talking till late in the night the other night over on Ronnie's Discord. So, but yeah, hey, thank you guys again. I really appreciate it. We just hit 100 likes, which is cool too. 100 likes, 88 watching. It's a good ratio. So yeah.
Thank you, Dak.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you guys for taking.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
No problem. Thank you guys for taking 3 hours out of your Saturday, or well, 3.5 now. I really appreciate that.
I look forward to it again.
Yeah, and
Thank you to everyone
yes,
in the
so do I.
chat for showing up. Thank you.
and this won't be the last you hear from all these people and from me, obviously, but you know, 3 days in the chat all the time as it is, and also in the Discord, and I've already had Elids on here twice and Den on here twice, so trust me, this isn't the last you're going to hear from any of them either. So yeah, thank you guys again, everyone. Hope you have a great weekend. So yeah, thank you guys again, everyone. Hope you have a great weekend.